can't do this anymore." Those 5 words shattered the silence of the empty cafe like glass hitting concrete. Ethan Parker stood frozen, rain hammering against the windows, staring at the woman who had somehow become his reason to smile again, and his greatest fear. Lena's eyes were red, her voice breaking as she demanded the truth he'd been hiding for months. This was the moment. The collision of grief and hope. The night a man who had buried his heart would finally have to choose: stay safe in his carefully constructed loneliness or risk everything for love one more time. If you want to see how this story ends, stay until the final word. Drop a like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let me take you back to where it all began. The morning light filtered through the windows of Parker's brew like liquid gold, illuminating dust particles that danced in the air above the espresso machine. Ethan Parker moved through his cafe with the precision of a man who had performed the same choreography 1,000 times, grinding beans, steaming milk, wiping down counters that didn't need wiping. His hands knew the work so well that his mind could wander elsewhere, which it did, constantly, to places he tried not to go. 3 years. 3 years since cancer had stolen Sarah from him, leaving him with a 6-year-old daughter and a grief so massive it had its own weather system. 3 years of learning to function on autopilot, of building a life that was safe and small and predictable. 3 years of surviving instead of living. "Dad, you're burning the milk again." Ethan blinked, pulled back to reality by his daughter's voice. At 9 years old, Maya had developed an unfortunate habit of being right about everything. He glanced down at the steaming pitcher in his hand, saw the temperature gauge climbing past the point of no return, and jerked it away from the steam wand. "I wasn't burning it. I was experimenting." Maya looked up from her homework spread across table 6, one eyebrow raised in an expression so reminiscent of her mother that Ethan's chest tightened. Experimenting with what? Bad coffee? "With creating new flavor profiles through advanced thermal manipulation," Ethan said, dumping the scorched milk down the sink. "That's a fancy way of saying you weren't paying attention." "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just don't listen." She returned to her math worksheet, pencil scratching against paper. "Mrs. Moreno says I have an exceptional ability to observe details that other people miss." "Mrs. Moreno sounds like a wise woman." "She is. She's also really pretty, and she comes here every Tuesday and Thursday, and she always sits at table 3. And she always orders black coffee even though she makes a face when she drinks it, like she doesn't actually like black coffee, but orders it anyway because, Maya, do your homework." But his daughter's words had already done their work, drawing his attention to table 3, where a woman sat with a stack of papers, a red pen, and a cup of coffee she hadn't touched in 15 minutes. Ethan had seen her before, of course. You didn't run a cafe for 3 years without noticing your regulars. But noticing and truly seeing were different things, and Ethan had stopped truly seeing much of anything beyond his daughter and his grief. Still, now that Maya had pointed her out, Ethan found himself looking, really looking, at the woman at table 3. She was maybe in her early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a perpetually messy bun that suggested she'd put it up in a hurry and forgotten about it. She wore clothes that were practical rather than fashionable. A cardigan with paint stains on the sleeves, jeans, canvas sneakers that had seen better days. As he watched, she pulled off her reading glasses to rub her eyes, and he caught a glimpse of her face. Warm brown eyes, the kind of face that looked like it smiled often, though at the moment it was creased in concentration. She was, objectively speaking, attractive. The kind of attractive that was quiet rather than loud, built from genuine features rather than artifice. And Ethan felt absolutely nothing about this observation except a distant, academic acknowledgement, the way someone might note that the sky was blue or that water was wet. The bell above the door chimed, and Tom Bradshaw walked in, bringing with him a gust of October wind and the smell of approaching rain. Tom was Ethan's closest friend, which wasn't saying much considering Ethan had effectively isolated himself from most human connection over the past 3 years. But Tom was persistent, showing up at the cafe 3 times a week whether Ethan wanted company or not. "The usual?" Ethan asked, already reaching for a cup. "The usual," Tom confirmed, settling onto a stool at the counter. "And one of those blueberry muffins Maya made. That kid's going to be a better baker than you by the time she's 12. She already is. Ethan poured coffee, slid it across the counter along with a muffin. She has something I lack. What's that? The ability to follow a recipe instead of improvising and calling it interpretation. Tom laughed, but his eyes were doing what they always did, scanning Ethan's face for signs of distress, looking for cracks in the armor. It was exhausting being monitored for emotional stability, which was one reason Ethan had learned to wear his neutral expression like a mask. So, Tom said, lowering his voice, Sarah's birthday is coming up next week. And there it was. The careful tone, the concerned eyes, the unspoken question, are you going to be okay? I know, Ethan said, keeping his voice level. Maya wants to visit the cemetery. I'm going to close the shop that afternoon. Take her out there. You want company? We'll be fine. That wasn't the question. Ethan met his friend's eyes. We'll be fine, he repeated, with enough finality that Tom raised his hands in surrender. All right. Just, you know where I am if you need me. I do. Thanks. Tom took a bite of his muffin, changing the subject. I saw Maya's art project in the display case at school, the one with all the handprints making a tree. Really beautiful. She get that talent from Sarah? Yeah, I can barely draw a stick figure. Mrs. Moreno did a hell of a job framing it. She's good with the kids. There was something in Tom's tone that made Ethan look up sharply. What? Nothing. Just making conversation. Tom! What? I'm just saying she's a good teacher. Maya talks about her all the time. Seems like a nice person. Tom's expression was aggressively innocent. Kind of person who might be nice to get to know. Ethan felt irritation spark in his chest. Don't. Don't what? I know what you're doing. Don't. Ethan, it's been 3 years. Don't, Ethan said again, his voice flat and hard. And this time Tom heard the warning in it and backed off, returning his attention to his muffin. The silence that followed was uncomfortable, filled with all the things Tom wanted to say and Ethan refused to hear. After a moment, Tom finished his coffee, left money on the counter, and headed for the door. I'll see you Friday, he said. And then he was gone, the bell chiming in his wake. Ethan exhaled slowly, willing the tension out of his shoulders. He knew Tom meant well. Everyone meant well. But their well-meaning concern felt like pressure, like expectations he couldn't meet, and sometimes the weight of other people's hope for his recovery was almost as heavy as the grief itself. You shouldn't be mean to Mr. Bradshaw. Maya had appeared at the counter, her homework abandoned, her expression serious. I wasn't mean. I was just direct. You were mean direct. There's a difference. She climbed onto the stool Tom had vacated. He's worried about you. He doesn't need to be. Yes, he does. Because you get that look sometimes. The one where you're here, but you're not really here. Like you're somewhere else in your head. Maya tilted her head, studying him. Mrs. Moreno says that when people are sad for a long time, they sometimes forget how to be happy. She says it's not their fault, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't try. Does Mrs. Moreno have an opinion on everything? Most things, Maya said cheerfully. She's very wise. She talks to you about me? No, dummy. She was talking about this book we read in class, about a girl whose mom died and she got all quiet and stopped painting. But then she started painting again and she felt better. Not all better, but better. Maya swung her legs, her sneakers hitting the stool with soft thuds. I think you should paint. I can't paint. Then you should do something that's not just this. She gestured around the cafe, and Ethan felt the criticism land even though her voice remained gentle. Mom wouldn't want you to just stop. The words hit him like a physical blow. Maya rarely talked about Sarah directly, and when she did, it was usually in the past tense, a story about something they'd done together, a memory she was afraid of forgetting. But this was different. This was Maya giving him permission, or maybe a directive to move forward. I haven't stopped, Ethan said quietly. I'm here. I'm running the cafe. I'm taking care of you. I know, but that's surviving, Dad, not living. There's a difference. She said it so matter-of-factly, with such simple clarity, that Ethan didn't know how to respond. Where had his daughter learned to see him so clearly? When had she become wise enough to diagnose the exact shape of his grief? Before he could formulate an answer, the bell chimed again, and a trio of college students tumbled in, laughing and shaking rain from their jackets. The moment broke. Maya slid off the stool and returned to her homework while Ethan took orders, made drinks, exchanged pleasantries with customers who knew him as the friendly cafe owner and had no idea that inside he was a collection of broken pieces held together by routine and sheer stubbornness. The afternoon passed in its usual rhythm. The after-school rush brought parents grabbing coffee while their kids got hot chocolate. Mrs. Chen came in for her daily decaf latte and spent 20 minutes telling Ethan about her grandson's achievements. A book club met in the corner, their discussion of some literary novel punctuated by laughter and the occasional heated debate. Through it all, Lina Moreno sat at table 3, grading papers with focused intensity. Ethan found himself glancing at her more than he meant to, noticing small details. The way she chewed on her pen cap when she was thinking. The soft smile that crossed her face when she read something that pleased her. The fact that she'd ordered black coffee but had only taken 3 sips in 2 hours. At 5:30, as the cafe began to empty, Lina stood, gathering her papers into a canvas bag. She approached the counter, and Ethan felt an unexpected flutter of something, nervousness, anticipation, that he immediately squashed. "All finished?" he asked, his voice professionally pleasant. "For today. I'll be drowning in these again by Monday." She smiled, and Ethan noticed she had a small dimple on her left cheek. "Your coffee is excellent, by the way." "You didn't drink it." The words were out before he could stop them, and he watched Lina's eyes widen slightly in surprise. Then she laughed, a sound that was warm and genuine and completely unself-conscious. "Busted," she said. "I'm actually more of a vanilla latte person, but I always feel guilty ordering something sweet when I'm trying to work. Black coffee feels more, professional? Is that weird?" "A little," Ethan admitted. "You know you're allowed to drink what you actually like, right?" "Revolutionary concept." Her smile widened. "I'll try a vanilla latte next time, if you're not too offended by the lack of coffee purity." "I think I'll survive the scandal." "Good, because Maya talks about your vanilla lattes constantly, says they're the best in the city." At the sound of her name, Maya looked up from her homework. "Hi, Mrs. Moreno." "Hi, Maya. Getting your homework done?" "Math, it's terrible." "Math is beautiful, you just haven't found the right way to see it yet." Lina walked over to the table, and Ethan watched as his daughter's face lit up in a way it rarely did outside of art projects or baking. "What are you working on?" "Fractions. Dad tried to help, but he just confused me more." "Hey," Ethan protested, but without heat. Lina laughed. "Fractions are tricky. Want me to take a look?" "Really? You don't have to." "I want to. Scoot over." For the next 20 minutes, Ethan watched as Lina sat with Maya, explaining fractions using drawings of pizzas and colored pencils from Maya's backpack. His daughter went from frustrated to engaged, asking questions, making connections, and eventually solving problems on her own while Lina watched with obvious pride. "You're really good at that," Ethan said when Maya finally declared her homework finished. Lina glanced up, and for a moment their eyes met. "It's my job," she said. "Besides, Maya makes it easy. She's incredibly bright. She gets that from her mom." The words came out without thought, an automatic response, and Ethan saw something flicker across Lina's face. Understanding, maybe, or sympathy. But she didn't offer platitudes or that terrible pitying look he'd grown to hate. She just nodded, as if he'd said something completely ordinary. "Well, she's lucky to have you too," Lina said, standing and gathering her things. "I should get going, early morning tomorrow." "Your latte," Ethan said suddenly, on the house for the math tutoring. "You don't have to." "I want to." Lina studied him for a moment, then smiled. "Okay, thank you." Ethan made her drink, taking more care than usual with the foam, creating a small leaf pattern on top. When he handed it to her, their fingers brushed briefly, and he felt that strange flutter again, not attraction exactly, but something adjacent to it. Recognition, maybe. The awareness that another person existed in his carefully controlled universe. "Thank you," Lina said again, "for the coffee, and for letting me crash your tutoring session." "Any time," Ethan replied, and was surprised to find he meant it. After she left, Maya abandoned all pretense of subtlety. She's nice. She is. And pretty. Maya, I'm just saying, it's an observation. Mrs. Moreno says good observers notice details. Maya's grin was absolutely wicked. I'm a very good observer. You're a very good troublemaker. I contain multitudes, Maya said, which was something Sarah used to say, and the echo of it made Ethan's heart twist. That night, after he'd closed the cafe and gotten Maya to bed, Ethan stood in his kitchen, staring at the calendar on the wall. Next Tuesday had a star on it, Sarah's birthday. 41 years old, frozen in time at 38. She'd never get older now, never get gray hair or laugh lines around her eyes. She'd remain eternally 38 in his memory, while he and Maya moved forward into a future she couldn't share. The grief rose up like a wave, sudden and overwhelming, and Ethan gripped the counter, breathing through it the way his therapist had taught him. Count to 10. Focus on the physical. Name 5 things you can see. Refrigerator, calendar, coffee mug, Maya's drawing on the fridge, the photograph of Sarah on the shelf. The photograph was from their wedding day, both of them laughing at something outside the frame, Sarah's head thrown back in pure joy. She'd been so alive then, so full of plans and dreams and certainty about their future. If someone had told them that day they'd only have 11 years together, would they have done anything differently? Ethan's phone buzzed, a text from Tom. Just checking in. You okay? He typed back, fine, thanks. Another buzz. I mean it about Sarah's birthday. You don't have to do this alone. I know. We're good. Tom sent back a thumbs up, but Ethan could feel the concern radiating through the screen. Everyone was always worried about him, always watching for signs of collapse, and sometimes he wanted to scream that he was fine. He was handling it. They could all stop monitoring him like he was a suicide risk. Except he wasn't fine. He was functional, which was different. He got up every morning, made coffee, took care of Maya, ran his business, paid his bills, and got through the day. And then he did it again, and again, and again. An endless loop of functioning without feeling, surviving without living. Something that's not just this, Maya had said, with the brutal honesty of children. Ethan looked at Sarah's photograph one more time, at her laughing face, and tried to imagine what she would say to him now. She'd probably tell him he was being an idiot, that grief wasn't a virtue, that she hadn't died so he could spend the rest of his life in stasis. Sarah had been practical about everything, even her own death. In those final weeks, she'd made him promise to take care of Maya, to keep living, to let himself be happy again someday. He'd made the promise. He just hadn't figured out how to keep it. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Ethan lay in bed, listening to the house settle, thinking about fractions and vanilla lattes and a woman with paint-stained sleeves who'd sat with his daughter and made her laugh. Thinking about the way Maya had looked at him, waiting for him to see something he was working very hard not to see. The thing about building walls around your heart was that they kept everything out, the bad, yes, but also the good. The thing about surviving was that it required shutting down the parts of yourself that felt too much. And the thing about grief was that it was easier, in some ways, than hope. Grief was familiar. Hope required courage. Ethan wasn't sure he had any courage left. Tuesday came with autumn rain and gray skies. Ethan woke early, made coffee, and tried not to think about the fact that Sarah should be turning 41 today, should be here planning how they'd celebrate, should be alive instead of a memory kept fresh by photographs and grief. Maya was quiet at breakfast, pushing her cereal around her bowl without eating. You okay, kiddo? Ethan asked. She nodded, but didn't meet his eyes. Are we still going to the cemetery later? If you want to. I want to. I made her a card. Maya's voice was small. Is that stupid? Making a card for someone who can't read it? Ethan's throat tightened. It's not stupid. It's perfect. Mrs. Moreno says that when we make things for people we love, it keeps them alive in our hearts, even if they're not alive anywhere else. Mrs. Moreno is right. She's right about a lot of things. There was something pointed in Maya's tone, but before Ethan could pursue it, she stood abruptly, abandoning her cereal. I need to get ready for school. She was gone before he could respond, leaving him alone with his coffee and his thoughts, and the weight of a birthday that shouldn't feel like grief, but always, always did. The morning at the cafe passed in a blur. Ethan moved through the motions, making drinks, taking orders, cleaning tables, all while his mind was somewhere else. Somewhere in the past, remembering Sarah's last birthday, the one where she'd been too weak to get out of bed but had insisted on chocolate cake anyway. They'd eaten it together, her and Ethan and Maya, making a party out of a tragedy, pretending for a few hours that everything was okay. At 11, the bell chimed, and Lena Moreno walked in. Ethan's first thought was that she shouldn't be here. It was Tuesday, but school was still in session. His second thought was that she looked tired, shadows under her eyes suggesting a rough night. His third thought was that he noticed these things at all, which meant Maya was right about him being a good observer, which was irritating. "Hi," Lena said, approaching the counter. "I have a teacher planning period. Thought I'd escape for some actual good coffee instead of the staff room sludge." "Vanilla latte?" She smiled. "You remember?" "I remember all my orders." It wasn't entirely true, but it sounded better than admitting he'd thought about their conversation more than once in the past week. As he made her drink, Lena leaned against the counter, watching him work. "Maya mentioned you're closing early today. Everything okay?" "Just a personal day." "Ah." She didn't push, which Ethan appreciated. "Well, I hope everything's all right." He handed her the latte, their fingers brushing again in that brief moment of contact. "It's my wife's birthday. My late wife's birthday. We're going to visit the cemetery." The words surprised him even as he said them. He didn't talk about Sarah to strangers, didn't offer up his grief like small talk. But something about Lena's presence, calm, undemanding, genuinely kind, made the truth easier to speak. "I'm sorry," Lena said, and there was real sympathy in her voice, but not pity. "That must be hard." "It is. But Maya wants to go, and I think it helps her to have a place to visit." "What about you? Does it help you?" No one ever asked him that. Everyone asked if he was okay, if he needed anything, if there was something they could do to help. But no one asked if the rituals of grief actually provided comfort, or if they were just another obligation he performed because it was expected. "Sometimes," Ethan said honestly, "and sometimes it makes everything worse. But I do it anyway, because Maya needs it. And maybe because I need it too, even when it hurts." Lena nodded slowly, cradling her latte between her hands. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing an amazing job with her. Maya is one of the brightest, kindest kids I've ever taught. Whatever you're doing, it's working." The compliment landed unexpectedly, warming something in Ethan's chest. "Thank you. That means a lot." "I mean it. She talks about you constantly. Her dad, who makes the best coffee in the city and lets her experiment with recipes and teaches her that it's okay to be sad sometimes." Lena's eyes were soft. "You're giving her space to grieve and permission to heal. That's not easy. I'm just trying not to screw her up too badly." "You're doing better than that." Lena took a sip of her latte and her eyes widened. "Okay, this is amazing. This is like criminally good coffee. I'll add criminal coffee maker to my resume." She laughed, and Ethan found himself smiling in response, genuine pleasure at having made her laugh. When was the last time he'd tried to be funny? When was the last time someone's laughter had felt like a reward? "I should get back," Lena said reluctantly, "but thank you for the coffee and the conversation, and I hope today goes as well as it can, given the circumstances." "Thank you." After she left, Ethan stood behind the counter, staring at the door, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Curious. Curious about Lena Moreno, about what had brought her to teaching, about whether she always wore cardigans with paint stains, or if that was specific to art classes. Curious about why her laugh made him want to hear it again. And then, immediately, guilty for feeling curious at all. The afternoon was quiet. Ethan closed the cafe at 2, picked up Maya from school, and drove to the cemetery under skies that threatened more rain. Maya clutched her handmade card, covered in drawings of flowers and hearts, and the words, "Happy Birthday, Mom," in careful block letters, and stared out the window in silence. The cemetery was nearly empty, just them and the endless rows of headstones marking lives finished too soon or perfectly on time, depending on your perspective. Sarah's grave was in the newer section, the grass still settling over the plot. The headstone simple granite with her name and dates and the phrase, beloved wife and mother. Maya knelt and placed her card against the headstone, her small hand smoothing it carefully. Hi, Mom. It's your birthday. I'm 9 now, 4th grade. I'm learning fractions and they're really hard, but Mrs. Moreno is helping me. Ethan watched his daughter talk to his dead wife, updating her on the life she was missing, and felt the familiar ache settle in his bones. This was their reality now. Conversations with Granite, birthday cards left to weather and fade, a love that continued despite death, which was beautiful and terrible in equal measure. Dad's good, Maya continued. He works a lot. He makes really good coffee. And he's trying really hard to be happy, even though I know he's still sad. That's okay, though. Mrs. Moreno says you can be sad and happy at the same time. She says feelings are complicated and that's normal. Ethan knelt beside his daughter, placing his hand on her shoulder. She's right. Feelings are complicated. They stayed for an hour, talking and silent by turns, sharing memories and comfortable quiet. When the rain finally started, they ran to the car, laughing despite themselves, and Maya said, Mom would have liked Mrs. Moreno, don't you think? The question caught Ethan off guard. Why do you say that? Because Mom liked people who were kind, and Mrs. Moreno is really kind, and she makes you smile, which Mom would want. Maya buckled her seatbelt, her expression serious. It's okay if you like her, Dad. I don't think Mom would be mad. Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Maya, It's not like that. Not yet, Maya said, with the confidence of someone who'd already decided how this story would end. But it could be, if you weren't so scared all the time. I'm not scared. Yes, you are. You're scared of being happy again because you think it means forgetting Mom. But that's dumb. She said it matter-of-factly, without judgment. You can remember Mom and still have new people in your life. They're not the same thing. Out of the mouths of babes, Ethan thought, staring at his wise beyond her years daughter. When had she figured all this out? When had she become the brave one? I'll think about it, he said finally, which was the most honest answer he could give. Good, because Mrs. Moreno asked about you today. She wanted to know if you were okay, and she got this look on her face when she said your name, kind of soft and worried and nice, and I think... Maya paused, choosing her words carefully. I think maybe she likes you too, just a little bit. Ethan's heart did something complicated in his chest, a flutter and a clench, hope and fear colliding. Let's go home, he said, because he didn't know what else to say, and Maya let it drop, returning her attention to the rain-streaked window. That night, after Maya was asleep, Ethan did something he hadn't done in months. He opened his laptop, found photos from Sarah's 40th birthday, the last one they'd celebrated together, and let himself remember. Not the sickness or the fear or the grief, but the joy, the laughter, the way Sarah had insisted on dancing in the kitchen despite being barely strong enough to stand, the way she'd looked at him with absolute love and absolute trust, believing he'd find a way to be okay without her. He hadn't kept that promise yet, but maybe, just maybe, he could start trying. The screen blurred as tears filled his eyes, but Ethan didn't look away. He sat with the grief and the memories and the impossibility of moving forward while holding on to the past. He sat with it until the tears stopped, until the memories softened from painful to bittersweet, until he could close the laptop and go to bed with something that almost felt like peace. Thursday morning brought sunshine and a cafe full of customers. Ethan was making his third vanilla latte of the morning when Lena walked in, right on schedule, and smiled at him with such genuine warmth that he forgot what he was doing and oversteamed the milk. Rough morning? She asked, amused. Something like that. Well, I come bearing gifts. She held up a folder. Maya left this in art class yesterday. Thought I'd drop it off instead of making her worry about it. You didn't have to do that. I know, but I was coming here anyway, so... She shrugged, and Ethan noticed she was wearing a different cardigan today, blue instead of gray, with fewer paint stains. Had she dressed up? Was he reading too much into everything? Let me make you a proper latte, he said, on the house. You keep giving me free coffee. I'm going to think you're trying to bribe me for good grades. Maya earns her own grades. This is just appreciation for being a good teacher. And for helping with fractions? That too. Their eyes met, held for a beat too long, and Ethan felt that flutter again, stronger this time, unmistakable. Awareness. Interest. The beginning of something he wasn't ready to name. Lena looked away first, breaking the moment. I'll take that latte, and maybe one of those blueberry muffins Maya's always talking about. As Ethan worked, he was hyper-aware of her presence, of the way she settled at table 3 like it was her designated spot, of the way she smiled at him when he delivered her order. And when she pulled out her papers to grade, he found himself inventing reasons to wipe down tables near her, to refill the sugar, to exist in her orbit. Maya was right. He was scared. Terrified, actually. But beneath the fear was something else, something small and fragile and persistent. The possibility that life could still surprise him, that joy wasn't finished with him yet, that maybe, just maybe, there was room in his carefully controlled world for something unexpected. Something like Lena Moreno, with her paint-stained cardigans and her kind eyes, and her ability to make his daughter laugh and his walls crack just a little. The question was, what was he going to do about it? The answer, for now, was nothing. Ethan returned to his work, made coffee, served customers, and pretended not to notice the way his heart beat a little faster every time Lena glanced up and caught his eye. He pretended not to notice Maya's knowing looks when she arrived after school and saw Lena still there, working. He pretended not to notice the way the cafe felt warmer, brighter, more alive when Lena was in it. He pretended very hard not to notice any of it. But pretending, he was beginning to realize, was becoming harder every day. And somewhere beneath his grief and his fear and his determination to stay safe, something was waking up, slowly, reluctantly, but undeniably. Hope. Terrifying, impossible, irresistible hope. And though Ethan didn't know it yet, that hope would change everything. The weeks that followed Sarah's birthday settled into a new rhythm, one that Ethan didn't consciously choose but found himself falling into anyway. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons became marked by Lena's presence at table 3. Her stack of papers and red pen as much a fixture as the espresso machine behind the counter. She'd arrive around 3:30, order her vanilla latte, exchange a few words with Ethan that felt increasingly less like customer barista small talk and more like something else entirely, then settle into work. And Ethan, despite every instinct screaming at him to maintain distance, found himself looking forward to those afternoons with an anticipation that both thrilled and terrified him. "You're doing it again," Maya said one Thursday, not looking up from the sketch she was working on. "Doing what?" "That thing where you pretend to clean the counter, but you're really just standing there so you can see Mrs. Moreno." Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. I'm actually cleaning." "The counter has been cleaned for 10 minutes. You're just moving the same cloth in circles." Maya finally looked up, one eyebrow raised. "It's okay, to like her." It's not." Ethan fumbled for words, caught between denial and the uncomfortable truth his 9-year-old daughter had so casually exposed. "She's a customer. And your teacher. She's a person, a nice person who makes you smile. That's allowed." Maya returned to her drawing, sketching what looked like a tree. "Mom would want you to be happy." The words landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading outward. Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but the bell above the door chimed, and Tom walked in, bringing a blast of November cold and saving Ethan from a conversation he wasn't ready to have. "Coffee," Tom announced, settling onto his usual stool. "Strong, black, life-giving." "Rough day?" "Rough week, rough month, rough year, honestly." Tom scrubbed his hands over his face. "Please tell me you have some of Maya's pumpkin bread left. Last slice, reserved just for you." "You're a saint." As Ethan poured coffee and plated the bread, he felt Tom's eyes on him, assessing in that way friends did when they were about to say something you didn't want to hear. "So," Tom said, his tone carefully casual, "I heard from Janet Chen that you've been chatting up Maya's teacher." Ethan's hand jerked, sloshing coffee onto the counter. "What? I haven't been—" "Mrs. Chen needs to mind her own business. Mrs. Chen is 73 and considers your love life her personal soap opera. You know this." Tom's grin was wicked. But she says Lena Moreno comes in here twice a week, sits at the same table, and you two make googly eyes at each other. We do not make googly eyes. We barely even talk. But you want to talk more, Tom said, making it a statement rather than a question. Come on, Ethan. I've known you for 15 years. I can tell when you're interested in someone. I'm not. Ethan stopped, exhaled slowly. It doesn't matter what I want. I'm not ready for anything. You've been saying that for 3 years. Because it's been true for 3 years. Tom's expression softened. Sarah's been gone for 3 years, man. And I know that doesn't make it easier. And I know grief doesn't have a timeline. But at some point, you have to let yourself live again. Not for me, not for everyone who's worried about you. For yourself. And for Maya. Maya's fine. Maya is resilient and brave and doing better than anyone could expect. But she also told me last week that she worries about you being lonely. Tom held up a hand when Ethan started to protest. I'm not saying you need to jump into a relationship. I'm just saying maybe let yourself be open to the possibility. That's all. Before Ethan could respond, Maya's voice cut across the cafe. Mrs. Moreno! Hi! Both men turned to see Lena entering, her canvas bag slung over one shoulder, her hair escaping its bun in dark tendrils. She waved at Maya, smiled at Ethan, and in that smile was something warm and genuine that made Ethan's chest tighten. Tom leaned closer, voice low. See? Googly eyes. Shut up, Ethan muttered, but there was no heat in it. Lena approached the counter, and Ethan was suddenly acutely aware of Tom watching this interaction with the intensity of someone gathering evidence. The usual? He asked, keeping his voice professionally neutral. Actually, I was hoping to switch it up. What do you recommend? The question was simple, but it felt loaded with possibility. Ethan considered, then said, Have you tried a honey lavender latte? It's one of Sarah's. He stopped, the name catching in his throat. It was a recipe my wife created. If you like floral notes, it's really good. He waited for Lena's expression to change, for the pity or discomfort that usually followed any mention of Sarah. But Lena just nodded, her eyes kind but not pitying. That sounds perfect. I'd love to try it. As Ethan made the drink, he was aware of Tom's presence, of Maya watching from her table, of the weight of expectation settling around him like fog. But mostly, he was aware of Lena, of the way she waited patiently, of the question she asked Maya about her drawing, of the easy laugh she gave when Maya explained she was designing a future cafe that serves coffee to astronauts. Here, Ethan said, sliding the latte across the counter. He'd taken extra care with it, creating a delicate flower pattern in the foam. Let me know what you think. Lena took a sip, and her eyes widened. Oh, wow. Ethan, this is incredible. The lavender isn't overpowering at all, and the honey just... She took another sip, closing her eyes. Your wife had excellent taste. She did, Ethan said quietly. In coffee, anyway. In you too, I'd imagine. The words were spoken lightly, but they landed with weight. Ethan met Lena's eyes and saw understanding there, acknowledgement of the grief he carried and the difficulty of this moment. But he also saw something else. Warmth, maybe, or interest, or the beginning of connection. Tom cleared his throat loudly. Lena Moreno, right? I'm Tom Bradshaw, Ethan's friend and unofficial life coach. Unofficial and unwanted, Ethan added. Lena laughed, shaking Tom's extended hand. Nice to meet you, though I'm not sure life coaching is Ethan's current need. Oh, it absolutely is. The man works too much, socializes too little, and needs someone to remind him that the world exists beyond this cafe. Tom's grin was shameless. But I hear you're doing a pretty good job of that yourself. Tom, Ethan's voice carried a warning. What? I'm just making conversation. Tom turned back to Lena, completely ignoring Ethan's glare. How long have you been teaching at Maya's school? 3 years. I moved here from Portland to take the position. Portland's great. What brought you east? A bad breakup and a job opportunity. Sometimes you need a fresh start, you know? Something in her tone suggested there was more to the story, layers Ethan found himself wanting to understand. But before he could ask, Tom was already moving the conversation forward, asking about her teaching philosophy, her favorite students, to which Lena diplomatically said she loved them all while winking at Maya, her thoughts on the best coffee in the city. "Well, this place has ruined me for everywhere else," Lena admitted. "I tried going to that chain on Fifth Avenue last week and it tasted like disappointment." "That's because Ethan's a perfectionist about his coffee," Tom said. "Everything else in his life can fall apart, but the coffee will be flawless." "Everything else is not falling apart," Ethan protested. "You still haven't fixed that shelf in your living room that's been crooked for 6 months. That's different. You ate cereal for dinner 3 nights last week. I was tired. You wore mismatched socks to Maya's parent-teacher conference. No one noticed." "Mrs. Moreno noticed," Maya called from her table, grinning. "She told me after you left." Lena had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "They were close enough. Navy and black are practically the same." "See?" Ethan said triumphantly. "Practically the same." "The point," Tom said, refusing to be derailed, "is that Ethan takes care of everyone and everything except himself. So if you happen to be someone who makes him remember to take care of himself, that's a good thing." The subtext was so obvious it might as well have been written in neon. Ethan wanted to sink through the floor, but Lena just smiled, something soft and understanding in her expression. "I should get to work," she said, rescuing them all from the increasingly awkward conversation. "Thanks for the recommendation. The honey lavender is definitely my new favorite." She moved to table 3, and Tom waited exactly 12 seconds before leaning across the counter. "She likes you." "You don't know that." "I absolutely know that. The woman just spent 10 minutes making small talk with your annoying friend and complimenting your coffee with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for life-changing experiences. She likes you." "Even if she does, which I'm not saying is true, I can't." "Can't what? Can't be happy? Can't move forward? Can't let someone kind and pretty and clearly interested get close to you?" Tom's voice gentled. "Ethan, you're allowed to live. Sarah would want you to live." "Everyone keeps saying that," Ethan said, frustration bleeding into his voice. "Like it's simple, like I can just decide to stop grieving and start over." "That's not what I'm saying. Grief doesn't end, I know that, but it can coexist with other things. Joy, connection, love." Tom gripped Ethan's shoulder. "You're a good man and a great father, and you deserve to be happy, not despite Sarah's death, not as a replacement for what you lost, just happy, as a person who's been through hell and deserves something good." Ethan didn't know how to respond to that, so he just nodded, his throat tight. Tom squeezed his shoulder once more, then left, taking his coffee and his uncomfortable truths with him. The cafe filled with the usual afternoon crowd, students studying, remote workers typing away, elderly couples sharing pastries. And through it all, Lena sat at table 3, grading papers and occasionally glancing up to catch Ethan's eye and smile. Around 5, Maya packed up her things. "I'm going to Sarah Chen's house to work on our science project. Her mom is picking me up in 10 minutes. What time should I get you?" "She said she'd drive me home after dinner. Is that okay?" "Sure. Text me when you're on your way back." Maya slung her backpack over her shoulder, then hesitated. "Dad? Yeah? You know that thing you're scared of? The thing with Mrs. Moreno?" Ethan sighed. "Maya, you should be brave. That's what you always tell me. When something is scary but good, you should be brave and do it anyway." She stood on her toes to kiss his cheek. "I love you, even when you're being a scaredy cat. I love you too, even when you're being a wise guy." After Maya left, the cafe gradually emptied until it was just Ethan, cleaning up from the day, and Lena still working through her stack of papers. The sky outside had darkened, November bringing early nightfall, and rain began to tap against the windows. Ethan was wiping down the espresso machine when Lena approached the counter, her canvas bag over her shoulder. "I should get going before this rain gets worse," she said. "Sure, thanks for coming in." "Ethan." She said his name like it meant something, like it was important, and he looked up to find her watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Can I ask you something?" "Okay." "Your friend Tom, he seems to think that there's something—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I just want to make sure I'm not misreading signals. Because I like coming here. I like talking to you. And I don't want to make things weird if I'm completely off base. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. This was it, the moment where he could shut this down, could retreat back into the safety of his grief and his routine. Or he could be brave, like Maya said. He could tell the truth. "You're not off base," he heard himself say. "I like when you come here too. I like talking to you, and that terrifies me." Lena's expression softened. "Because of your wife." "Because of Sarah, yeah. But also because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be interested in someone again. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know." He stopped, overwhelmed by the enormity of his own confusion. "You don't have to know everything right now," Lena said gently. "We could just start small. Maybe get coffee sometime. Somewhere that isn't your cafe, so you can sit down and actually relax. That feels like a date." It could be. Or it could just be two people who enjoy each other's company getting to know each other better. No pressure, no expectations. Just possibility. Possibility. The word hung between them, fragile and frightening and oddly compelling. "I don't want to hurt you," Ethan said quietly. "I'm kind of a mess. I'm still grieving. I have a 9-year-old daughter. I work 60 hours a week. And I'm not sure I even remember how to have a normal conversation that doesn't revolve around coffee or homework." "I'm a mess too," Lena said, and there was something vulnerable in her admission. "I moved across the country to escape a relationship that broke my heart. I'm 32 and living in a studio apartment with furniture from IKEA and a social life that consists of grading papers at coffee shops. I alphabetize my bookshelf and cry during Pixar movies and have genuine anxiety about whether my students like me. We're all a mess, Ethan. The question is whether we want to be a mess alone or with someone else." The honesty of it struck him. Here was someone willing to be real, to admit imperfection, to meet him where he was instead of where he should be. "Okay," Ethan said, before he could talk himself out of it. "Coffee, somewhere else. As two messes getting to know each other." Lena's smile was brilliant. "Yeah? Yeah, when? I'm free Sunday afternoon. There's that place on Maple Street, the Grindhouse. They supposedly have terrible coffee, which means you can't go into cafe owner mode and critique everything. I make no promises about my ability to not critique coffee." "Fair enough." She pulled out her phone. "Should I give you my number, or is this the kind of maybe date where we just hope to run into each other?" Ethan pulled out his own phone, hands slightly shaking, and they exchanged numbers. The act felt monumental, like crossing a bridge he'd spent 3 years avoiding. "Sunday at 2?" Lena suggested. "Sunday at 2," Ethan confirmed. After she left, Ethan stood in the empty cafe, staring at his phone where Lena's contact information glowed on the screen. He'd done it. He'd said yes to possibility, to moving forward, to potentially opening his heart again. And he felt simultaneously exhilarated and nauseated, brave and terrified, hopeful and guilty. His phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "At Sarah's house. Her mom made lasagna and it's amazing. See you at 8. He texted back a thumbs up, then found himself scrolling to Tom's number. "I have a maybe date on Sunday." Tom's response was immediate. "With Lena?" "Yes." "Finally! I'm so proud of you. Want me to come over and help you pick an outfit?" "Absolutely not. Your loss. I have excellent fashion sense. You wore a Hawaiian shirt to a funeral. It was a celebration of life. The theme was tropical." Despite everything, the anxiety, the guilt, the fear, Ethan found himself smiling. Maybe Tom was right. Maybe he was allowed to be happy, even while carrying grief. Maybe joy and sorrow could coexist like Lena had suggested. That night, after Maya came home full of stories about her science project and Sarah Chen's mom's cooking, after he'd tucked her into bed and listened to her talk about her day, Ethan sat in his living room and looked at the photos of Sarah scattered throughout the space. "I'm going to have coffee with someone," he said to her photograph, feeling ridiculous but needing to say it out loud. "Her name is Lena. She's Maya's teacher. She's kind and patient, and she makes me feel something. I don't know what yet, and I feel guilty about it, like I'm betraying you, but I also think maybe you'd understand. You always said I should keep living. I'm trying to figure out what that means." The The photograph, of course, didn't answer. But somehow, sitting there in the quiet, Ethan felt a small measure of peace. The weekend passed in a blur of cafe work and internal panic. Ethan changed his shirt 4 times Sunday morning before settling on a simple button-down and jeans. He told himself it wasn't a date, just coffee, no big deal. He told himself this approximately 73 times. "You look nice," Maya said when she saw him. "Is this for Mrs. Moreno?" "It's just coffee." "Just coffee that you changed shirts for 4 times." "How did you—" "I was watching from the hallway. You're really bad at making decisions when you're nervous." Maya grinned. "It's cute. I'm leaving you with Tom for a few hours. Try not to tell him everything. No promises." Tom arrived at 1:30, his grin insufferable. "Look at you, all dressed up for your not date." "It's not a date." "Keep telling yourself that, buddy." Ethan escaped before Tom could offer any more commentary, driving to Maple Street with his stomach doing gymnastics. He arrived 10 minutes early, parked, and sat in his car trying to remember how normal humans had conversations. Lena showed up at 2 on the dot, wearing a green sweater and jeans, her hair down for once, and falling in waves past her shoulders. She looked nervous too, which somehow made Ethan feel better. "Hi," she said, sliding into the passenger seat. "Hi. You look nice." "Thanks. You too." She glanced at the cafe. Ready to judge their terrible coffee? Born ready. The Grindhouse was exactly as advertised. Decent atmosphere, mediocre coffee. They ordered drinks and found a corner table, and for the first few minutes the conversation was stilted, both of them trying too hard. "This is weird," Lena finally said. "Right? This feels weird?" "So weird," Ethan admitted, relief flooding through him. "I don't remember how to do this." "Me neither. My last first date was 6 years ago, and it ended with a 3-year relationship and a lot of therapy. So, low pressure. I haven't been on a date since my wife died. And before that, we'd been together since college, so I'm working with approximately 0 recent experience. We're both disasters. Great." But Lena was smiling, and somehow acknowledging their mutual awkwardness made everything easier. "Tell me about Portland," Ethan said. "What made you leave?" Lena wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I was with someone for 3 years. We lived together, talked about marriage, the whole thing, and then I found out he'd been cheating on me with a coworker for the last 8 months. Very cliché, very painful. I couldn't stay in a city where I might run into them, so when the job here opened up, I took it." "I'm sorry. That's awful." "It was. But honestly, it also taught me that I'd been settling, accepting less than I deserved because I was afraid of being alone. Coming here, starting over, it was scary but also liberating. I got to figure out who I was without someone else defining me." She took a sip of her coffee, made a face. "You were right. This is terrible. Told you. Your coffee has ruined me." "Sorry, not sorry." Lena laughed, and the sound eased something in Ethan's chest. They talked for 2 hours, conversation flowing more naturally as they relaxed into each other's company. Lena told him about growing up in California, about how she'd always wanted to teach, about her love of terrible reality TV and her inability to keep plants alive. Ethan found himself talking about Sarah, not the loss, but the life they'd built together, the good memories, the way she'd pushed him to open the cafe when he was too scared to take the risk. "She sounds amazing," Lena said. "She was, and I loved her completely, but she's gone, and I'm still here, and I'm trying to figure out what that means, how to honor what we had while also—" He trailed off, unsure how to finish. "While also living your own life," Lena supplied gently. "It's not betrayal, Ethan. It's survival. It's choosing to keep going even when it's hard." "Is that what you did? After your breakup?" "Eventually. It took time. And therapy, and a lot of bad decisions involving ice cream and rom-coms. But yeah, I chose to keep going. To believe that heartbreak wasn't the end of my story." She met his eyes. "I think you're doing the same thing, even if it doesn't feel like it." When they finally left the cafe, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. They walked slowly back to Ethan's car, neither quite ready for the afternoon to end. "This was nice," Lena said. "Really nice." "It was. Better than I expected, honestly. Wow, way to set the bar high. I meant, I was so nervous I thought I might throw up. But this was actually good. Easy. Like talking to a friend. A friend you're attracted to? Lena asked, a teasing edge to her voice. Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. Maybe. Good. Because I'm definitely attracted to you, and it would be awkward if it was one-sided. The admission hung between them, honest and vulnerable. Ethan's heart raced, but this time it wasn't just fear. It was anticipation, possibility, the beginning of something new. I'm going to be really bad at this, he warned. I'm going to overthink everything and probably panic and push you away when things get too real. I'm probably going to do the same thing, but maybe we can be bad at it together. Maya's going to be insufferable when she finds out. She's been trying to set us up for weeks. She told me, very subtly mentioned that you're a great cook and never date anyone and could use someone to make you smile. I'm going to have words with that child. Don't. She's just looking out for you. It's sweet. They reached Ethan's car, and for a moment they just stood there, neither quite sure how to say goodbye. Finally, Lena leaned in and kissed his cheek, quick and soft. Same time next week? She asked. Yeah, definitely. Ethan drove home feeling lighter than he had in years, like some massive weight had been lifted from his shoulders. When he walked into his apartment, Maya and Tom looked up from their board game with matching expressions of anticipation. Well? Maya demanded. Maya, how was it? It was good. Just good? Really good. We're doing it again next week. Maya's whoop of victory was so loud Tom winced. I knew it! Dad, I'm so proud of you. Thanks, kiddo. Tom stood, clasping Ethan's shoulder. So, I think I might be ready to try this. Whatever this is. That's all anyone can ask, Tom said. One step at a time, right? One step at a time. It felt manageable when framed that way. Not a leap into the unknown, just small steps forward, with the possibility of something good waiting at the end. That night, after Tom left and Maya was asleep, Ethan looked again at Sarah's photograph. The guilt was still there, but softer now, mixed with something that might have been gratitude. Sarah had loved him enough to want him to be happy, even without her. Maybe it was time to honor that love by trying. Thank you, he whispered to the photograph, to the memory, to the woman who'd shaped so much of his life. For everything. I'm going to try to move forward now. I think you'd approve. The photograph didn't answer, but somehow Ethan felt at peace. The weeks that followed their first coffee date developed a rhythm that felt both natural and terrifying. Ethan and Lena saw each other twice a week, Sundays for coffee at various cafes around the city, and one weeknight when Maya had soccer practice and Ethan could steal 2 hours away from the shop. They talked about everything and nothing, shared stories from their pasts, laughed at terrible jokes, and slowly, carefully, built something that felt like the foundation of real connection. But Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was living two separate lives. There was the life where he smiled at Lena over coffee cups and felt his heart lift when she texted him good morning. And then there was the life where he still slept on his side of the bed, still kept Sarah's favorite coffee mug on the shelf, still felt like he was somehow betraying a promise he'd made at an altar 11 years ago. You're doing that thing again, Lena said one Sunday in early December. They were sitting in a small cafe near the university, watching students hurry past the windows with their arms full of textbooks and their faces pinched against the cold. What thing? The thing where you're here, but also somewhere else. You get this look, like you're having an entire argument with yourself in your head. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. Talk to me. Ethan stared at their hands, almost touching, but not quite. Even that small gesture felt loaded with meaning, with possibility and peril in equal measure. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I like you. I really like you. But every time I let myself feel that, I also feel guilty, like I'm choosing you over Sarah's memory, which I know is stupid because Sarah is gone and you're here, but it's not stupid, Lena interrupted gently. Grief doesn't follow logic, Ethan. You loved her. You lost her. Those feelings don't just disappear because you're ready to move forward. Are you sure you want to deal with this? With me being this complicated? Lena was quiet for a moment, considering. My last relationship ended because the guy I was with wanted simple. He wanted someone who'd fit neatly into his life without complications or history or baggage. And for a while, I tried to be that person. I made myself smaller, quieter, easier to love. And it still wasn't enough. She squeezed his hand. I don't want simple anymore, Ethan. I want real. And real means complicated. It means history and grief and a 9-year-old daughter who's smarter than both of us combined. If you're willing to try, so am I. Something in Ethan's chest cracked open at her words, something that had been locked tight for 3 years. I'm not going to be good at this. I'm going to pull away when things get too close. I'm going to overthink everything. I'm going to... Ethan, Lena's voice was firm but kind. Stop telling me all the ways this is going to fail and just be here, right now, with me. Can you do that? Could he? Ethan looked at Lena, really looked at her, and saw someone willing to meet him in his mess, someone patient enough to let him move at his own pace, someone brave enough to risk her heart on a man still learning how to heal. He saw possibility. He saw hope. I can try, he said. That's all I'm asking. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the world move past the windows. Eventually, Lena checked her phone and sighed. I should get going. I have about 40 essays to grade before tomorrow, and at least half of them are going to make me question my life choices. The joys of teaching. You have no idea. Last week, a kid wrote an entire paper about his dog. The assignment was on the American Revolution. Maybe his dog is very historically significant. His dog is 3 years old and eats his own poop. Not exactly Revolutionary War material. Ethan laughed, and Lena smiled at the sound like it was something precious. They walked to the parking lot together, and at her car, there was that awkward moment where neither of them quite knew how to say goodbye. They'd been seeing each other for nearly a month now, but physical affection beyond hand-holding still felt like uncharted territory. Can I hug you? Lena asked, and Ethan appreciated that she asked, that she didn't assume. Yes. She stepped into his arms, and Ethan wrapped her in an embrace that felt both foreign and right. She was warm and solid and real, and for a moment he let himself just feel it. The comfort of human contact, the simple pleasure of holding someone who wanted to be held. See you Tuesday? Lena murmured against his shoulder. Tuesday, Ethan confirmed. The drive home was quiet, Ethan's mind churning through the conversation, through Lena's words about wanting real instead of simple. When he walked into the cafe, closed on Sundays but still home in every way that mattered, he found Maya sitting at the counter doing homework, Tom supervising with the attention span of a distracted golden retriever. Uncle Tom let me have 3 cookies, Maya announced immediately. Maya, you weren't supposed to tell him that. Honesty is important. Also, can I have a 4th cookie? Absolutely not, Ethan said, but he was smiling. Tom, you're a terrible influence. I prefer fun uncle figure. Tom studied Ethan's face. Good date? It was good. Complicated, but good. Complicated how? Ethan glanced at Maya, who had returned to her math worksheet with suspicious focus. Can we talk later? Sure. I'll swing by after Maya goes to bed. Tom ruffled Maya's hair. Be good, kiddo. Always am? After Tom left, Maya looked up from her homework, her expression serious. Are you and Mrs. Moreno boyfriend and girlfriend now? The question landed with the subtlety of a brick. We're figuring it out. What's there to figure out? You like her, she likes you, seems pretty straightforward. It's more complicated than that. Because of Mom? Ethan pulled out the stool next to her, sitting down heavily. Yeah, because of Mom, and because I don't want to mess this up, and because I'm scared. Maya set down her pencil, turning to face him fully. Dad, can I tell you something? Always. I don't remember Mom as well as I used to. I remember big things, what she looked like, how she smelled like vanilla and coffee, how she sang off key to the radio. But little things are getting fuzzy. And that scared me for a long time, like I was losing her twice. Maya's eyes were bright with unshed tears. But then I realized that even if I don't remember every single thing, she's still part of me. She's in the way I laugh, and the way I bake, and the way I know when you're sad, even when you pretend you're not. She's not going anywhere just because we're moving forward. Ethan's throat tightened. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't listen. She echoed her words from weeks ago, but this time they carried more weight. Mrs. Moreno isn't trying to replace Mom. Nobody could. But she makes you happy. I can see it. And I think Mom would want that for you. For us. You really like her, don't you? She's the best teacher I've ever had. She's patient and funny, and she actually listens when I talk. And she looks at you like you're something special, which you are, even though you don't always believe it. Maya reached over and squeezed his hand. It's okay to be happy, Dad. I promise. Ethan pulled his daughter into a hug, overwhelmed by her capacity for understanding, for forgiveness, for love. I love you, Maya Parker. You know that? I know. I love you too, even when you're being stubborn. I'm not stubborn. You once spent 3 hours trying to fix the coffee grinder instead of just buying a new one. That's called being resourceful. That's called being stubborn. That night, after Maya was asleep, Tom returned as promised, bearing a 6-pack of beer and an expression that said he was prepared for a deep conversation. So, Tom said, settling onto the couch. Talk to me. Ethan cracked open a beer, took a long drink, and tried to organize his thoughts. I think I'm falling for her. Lena. And that terrifies me. Why? Because what if I mess it up? What if I'm not ready and I hurt her? What if... Ethan stopped, the real fear finally surfacing. What if I fall in love with her and something happens? What if I lose her too? Tom was quiet for a moment. That's always the risk, man. Love doesn't come with guarantees. Sarah didn't get sick because you loved her too much, or not enough. Bad things just happen sometimes. And yeah, you could lose Lena someday. Or she could lose you. Or you could have 50 happy years together and die peacefully in your sleep. You don't know. Nobody knows. So what do I do? You decide if the possibility of love is worth the risk of loss. Because from where I'm sitting, you're already halfway in love with her. The question is whether you're going to let yourself fall the rest of the way or pull back now and always wonder what if. Ethan thought about Lena's smile, her laugh, the way she looked at him like he was worth the effort. He thought about Maya's words, about moving forward without leaving Sarah behind. He thought about the cafe and routine and the small, safe life he'd built, and how Lena had walked into it and made everything feel bigger, brighter, more alive. I want to try, Ethan said quietly. I want to really try. Not just dating, but actually being open to this, to her. Then try. And when it gets scary, because it will get scary, don't run. Talk to her. Let her in. That's all you can do. December deepened into cold and early darkness, and Ethan found himself navigating the strange territory of actual relationship building. He and Lena texted throughout the day, nothing profound but small check-ins that became essential to his routine. She sent him photos of student artwork that made her laugh. He sent her pictures of Maya's increasingly elaborate baking experiments. They traded terrible puns and good morning messages, and slowly built an intimacy that felt both precious and precarious. On a Thursday evening 2 weeks before Christmas, Lena came to the cafe after closing. Maya was at a friend's house for a sleepover, leaving Ethan with a rare evening alone. He'd invited Lena over on impulse, and now, waiting for her to arrive, he felt nervous energy coursing through him. When she knocked, Ethan nearly jumped out of his skin. He opened the door to find Lena bundled in a thick coat, her cheeks pink from the cold, snowflakes melting in her dark hair. "Hi," she said. "Hi, come in. It's freezing." She stepped inside, looking around the empty cafe with interest. "I've never been here when it's closed. It's kind of magical, like a secret space." "It's just a cafe." "It's your cafe. That makes it different." She unwound her scarf, her eyes bright. "So, what's the plan? Are you going to teach me to make proper coffee?" "I thought we could just talk. Maybe watch a movie. Be normal people doing normal things." Define normal. I have absolutely no idea. They ended up on the couch in Ethan's small apartment above the cafe, a bottle of wine open between them, some forgettable movie playing on the TV that neither of them was really watching. Instead, they talked, about childhood memories and embarrassing moments and dreams they'd given up on, and others they were still chasing. I wanted to be a painter, Lena admitted. That was the plan. Art school, struggling artist, the whole cliché, but I wasn't quite good enough to make it professionally, and teaching seemed like a way to stay close to art without the constant rejection. Do you regret it? Sometimes. But then I see a kid's face light up when they figure out shading, or when they create something they're proud of, and I think maybe I ended up exactly where I was supposed to be. She took a sip of wine. What about you? Did you always want to run a cafe? I wanted to be a writer, novels specifically. Very serious literary fiction that nobody would read but everyone would respect. Ethan smiled at the memory. Sarah was the practical one. She suggested we open the cafe as a stable income while I worked on my book. And then life happened, and the book never materialized, and the cafe became the thing I was actually good at. Do you still write? Not in years. After Sarah got sick, I couldn't focus on anything that wasn't immediate survival. And after she died, I didn't have anything to say. Maybe you will again, Lena said softly. When you're ready. They fell into comfortable silence, the movie playing forgotten in the background. Ethan was acutely aware of Lena's presence beside him, the warmth of her body, the way her hand rested on the couch between them. Without thinking, he reached over and laced his fingers through hers. Lena looked down at their joined hands, then up at him, something vulnerable in her expression. Ethan? Yeah? Can I ask you something? And I need you to be completely honest. Okay. Are you doing this, us, because you actually want to, or because everyone thinks you should move on? The question hit him like cold water. What? No. Lena, I'm here because I want to be. Are you sure? Because sometimes I worry that I'm just convenient. The nice teacher who was patient enough to wait while you figured things out. I need to know that this is real for you, not just you going through the motions because it's been long enough. Ethan set down his wine glass, turning to face her fully. You're not convenient. You're complicated and patient and kind, and you make me feel things I thought I'd never feel again. And yes, I'm scared. Yes, I still feel guilty sometimes. But I'm here because I want to be here with you, figuring this out. That's the truth. Promise? I promise. He squeezed her hand. I'm not good at this. I'm going to mess up, probably more than once. But I'm trying, Lena. I'm really trying. She leaned in then, slowly enough that he could pull away if he wanted to, and kissed him. It was soft and tentative, a question more than a statement, and Ethan found himself answering it, his hand coming up to cup her face as the kiss deepened. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Lena's eyes were bright. Wow. Yeah, wow. For the record, that's the first time I've kissed someone in almost 2 years, so if it was terrible, blame the rust. It wasn't terrible, Ethan said, his voice rough. It was pretty far from terrible. They kissed again, longer this time, and Ethan felt something unlock in his chest, not the grief leaving, but making room for something else to exist alongside it. Joy. Desire. Hope for a future that didn't feel like a betrayal of the past. Later, as they sat curled together on the couch, Lena's head on his shoulder, Ethan felt more at peace than he had in years. This was real. This was happening. And it was terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. Stay, he said quietly. Just for tonight. I'm not asking for, I just want you here. Is that okay? That's more than okay, Lena murmured. They fell asleep like that, tangled together on the couch. And when Ethan woke up hours later, he felt Lena's steady breathing against his chest and thought maybe, just maybe, he could do this. He could let someone in. He could build something new without destroying what came before. The next morning brought coffee and comfortable silence, Lena stealing one of his shirts and looking adorable and sleep-rumpled in his kitchen. They made breakfast together, bumping into each other in the small space, and it felt domestic in a way that should have scared Ethan, but instead just felt right. I should go, Lena said reluctantly after they'd cleaned up. I have a mountain of work to do before Monday. Okay, thanks for staying. Thanks for asking. She kissed him quickly. Text me later? Definitely. After she left, Ethan stood in his kitchen, still smelling her shampoo on his borrowed shirt, and felt the guilt rise up like a wave. He'd spent the night with someone who wasn't Sarah. He'd kissed someone, held someone, wanted someone who wasn't his wife. And even though Sarah was gone, even though he knew intellectually that he was allowed to move forward, the emotional reality of it hit him like a truck. He pulled out his phone and texted Tom. "I need to talk." Tom arrived 20 minutes later with bagels and a knowing expression. "You slept with her." "We didn't. We just slept. Actually slept. On the couch." "But you wanted to do more." "Is there a point to this interrogation?" Tom handed him a bagel. "The point is you're freaking out because you took a step forward and now you're second-guessing everything. Am I close?" "Uncomfortably close." "Ethan, you're allowed to have feelings for someone else. You're allowed to kiss someone, sleep next to someone, want someone. Sarah would want that for you." Everyone keeps saying that, but how do you know? How does anyone know what Sarah would want?" "Because she loved you enough to make you promise to keep living. Because in those last weeks, she talked to me about it, about how worried she was that you'd shut down after she was gone. She made me promise to kick your ass if you tried to martyr yourself in grief." Tom's voice was gentle but firm. "She wanted you to be happy, man. Not immediately, not before you were ready, but eventually. And I think eventually is now." Ethan sat down heavily, the weight of it all pressing on his shoulders. What if I can't do both? Love Sarah's memory and love Lena? What if trying to move forward means letting go of the past? It doesn't work like that. Love isn't finite. You don't run out of capacity just because you give it to someone new. You can hold space for Sarah in your heart and still make room for Lena. They don't cancel each other out. I'm terrified of losing her. Lena, what if something happens? Then something happens, and you survive it because that's what you do. But Ethan, you can't refuse to live because you're afraid of dying. That's not living, that's just existing, and you deserve more than that. The conversation circled in Ethan's mind for days, through Christmas preparations and Maya's increasing excitement about the holidays and Lena's continued presence in his life. They were careful around each other now, both aware they'd crossed some threshold that couldn't be uncrossed, both uncertain what came next. On Christmas Eve, Lena invited them to her apartment for dinner. It was small and cluttered with books and student artwork, warm in a way that had nothing to do with the heater and everything to do with the person who lived there. Maya loved it immediately, exploring with the enthusiasm of someone discovering a new secret hideout. "Your place is so cool," Maya announced. "It's like a teacher museum." "That's one way to put it," Lena said, laughing. "I may have a slight hoarding problem when it comes to student art." They made dinner together, pasta and garlic bread and a salad that Maya picked all the tomatoes out of, and it felt like family in a way that made Ethan's heart ache and soar simultaneously. After dinner, they watched a Christmas movie, Maya falling asleep halfway through, her head on Lena's shoulder. "She really likes you," Ethan said quietly. "I really like her too. She's an amazing kid." "She is, and she's been through so much. If we do this, if we really commit to trying, I need to know you understand what you're getting into. It's not just me, it's Maya too, and if things don't work out—" "Ethan," Lena's voice was firm, "I'm not going to hurt her. I'm not going to hurt you. I can't promise everything will be perfect, but I can promise I'm in this for real, not as a casual thing, not as something to pass the time. I care about both of you. A lot." "I care about you too," Ethan said, the admission feeling monumental. "More than I thought I could care about anyone again." Lena reached over Maya's sleeping form to squeeze his hand. "Then let's stop being scared and just try. For real this time." "For real," Ethan agreed. They sat like that until Maya woke up, disoriented and cranky, and Ethan decided it was time to head home. At the door, Lena kissed him goodbye, and for the first time, Ethan didn't feel guilty about it. He just felt grateful. But gratitude and peace were fragile things, and 2 weeks into January, everything came crashing down. It started with a bad day at the cafe, equipment breaking, a difficult customer, inventory problems that ate up hours of his time. Ethan was exhausted and frustrated, running on too little sleep and too much coffee, when Lena texted asking if they could talk. His immediate thought was that she was ending things, that she'd realized he was too broken, too complicated, too stuck in his grief to be worth the effort. By the time she arrived that evening, Maya at another sleepover, Tom unavailable, Ethan had worked himself into a state of quiet panic. "Hey," Lena said when he let her in. "You okay? You sounded stressed on the phone." "I'm fine. What did you want to talk about?" Lena sat down at one of the cafe tables, and something in her expression made Ethan's stomach drop. "I got offered a job. In Portland. At my old school. They want me to start next fall." The words landed like punches. Portland. Across the country. Leaving. "Oh," Ethan said, because he couldn't think of anything else to say. "I haven't decided yet. I wanted to talk to you first, see what you thought." What I thought? Something hot and sharp rose in Ethan's chest. What I thought about you leaving. It's not about leaving, it's about an opportunity. A chance to rebuild relationships with my family, to advance my career, to run away from this. Ethan interrupted, his voice harder than he intended. "That's what this is, right? Things got real, and you're looking for an exit." Lena's eyes widened. "That's not fair. I'm trying to have a conversation about my future, and I'm what? Supposed to be supportive? Supposed to smile and say, 'Go ahead, leave, it's fine'?" Ethan felt 3 years of fear and grief and barely controlled emotions surging up, demanding release. "I can't do this. I can't let myself care about someone just to watch them disappear. I can't. Ethan, I'm not Sarah. I'm not dying. I'm considering a job offer. Those are completely different things." "Are they?" "Because from where I'm standing, the result is the same. You leave and I'm alone again, and I have to explain to Maya why another person she cares about is gone." "Another person?" Lena's voice rose. "Ethan, I haven't left. I haven't even decided anything. I came here to talk to you, to include you in this decision, and you're already pushing me away. Is that what you do? The second things get complicated, you shut down." "Maybe I do. Maybe that's all I know how to do anymore. Maybe I was stupid to think I could do this, could be in a relationship again, could—" He stopped, breathing hard, his hands shaking. Lena stood, her eyes bright with tears. "What are we doing here, Ethan? Really? Because I thought we were building something. I thought you were ready to try. But if the first real challenge makes you retreat like this, if you're going to use Sarah's death as an excuse to never risk anything again, then maybe this was a mistake." "Maybe it was," Ethan shot back, and the moment the words left his mouth, he wanted to take them back. But it was too late. The hurt on Lena's face was devastating. "Wow. Okay." She grabbed her coat, hands fumbling with the zipper. "You know what? Figure out what you actually want, Ethan. Because I can't keep doing this dance where we get close and then you panic and push me away. I deserve better than that. And honestly, so do you." "Lena, wait." But she was already gone, the door swinging shut behind her, leaving Ethan alone in the silent cafe with the wreckage of what they'd been building. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the door, his heart hammering against his ribs. What had he done? Why had he said those things? Fear. That's what it was, pure, undiluted fear of being left again, of loving someone and losing them, of opening his heart just to have it shattered. But pushing Lena away to avoid future pain had just created immediate agony, and he had no one to blame but himself. Ethan pulled out his phone, typed and deleted a dozen messages to Lena, each one inadequate to express the complexity of what he was feeling. Finally, he just sent, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." The message went unread. That night was the longest of Ethan's life. He paced his apartment, replaying the argument, hating himself for every word. When Maya came home the next morning, she took one look at his face and asked, "What happened?" "Lena and I had a fight." "What kind of fight?" "The bad kind." Ethan sat down heavily. "She might be moving to Portland, and I didn't handle it well." Maya was quiet for a moment. "Did you tell her how you feel?" "I told her I couldn't do this, that caring about her was too scary." "Dad." Maya's voice was disappointed, which was somehow worse than angry. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say." "Maya, no, seriously. You finally found someone who makes you happy, who's nice and kind and patient with all your weird grief stuff, and you push her away because you're scared? That's not protecting yourself. That's just being a coward." The words stung because they were true. "I know. I messed up. So fix it. I don't know how. Start with the truth. Tell her you love her. Ethan's breath caught. I don't. Yes, you do. You love her, I can see it. And she loves you too, which is why this fight hurts so much. So stop being scared and tell her the truth. But the truth felt too big, too terrifying to speak aloud. Because if Ethan admitted he loved Lena, he'd have to admit he was risking everything all over again, and he wasn't sure he was brave enough for that. 3 days passed in painful silence. Lena didn't respond to his messages, didn't come to the cafe, didn't reach out. Ethan went through the motions of his life, running the cafe, taking care of Maya, existing, but inside he was crumbling. On the 4th day it started raining, a cold, relentless rain that matched Ethan's mood perfectly. He closed the cafe early, sent Maya to Tom's house, and sat alone in the empty space, staring at table 3 and trying to figure out how he'd managed to destroy the best thing that had happened to him in years. At 8 o'clock, someone knocked on the door. Ethan looked up to see Lena standing outside in the rain, soaked to the bone, her expression a mixture of anger and heartbreak and determination. He rushed to unlock the door. "Lena, what? We need to talk," she said, pushing past him into the cafe. Water dripped from her coat, pooling on the floor, but she didn't seem to notice or care. "And this time, you're going to listen. Really listen." Ethan's heart hammered. "Okay. I came here to tell you I'm not taking the job in Portland. I'm staying, not because of you, or not entirely because of you, but because I built a life here. I have students I care about, friends I've made, a home that feels like mine, and yes, I have you. Or I had you before you decided to sabotage everything because you're terrified of being happy." "Lena, I'm not done." Her voice shook, but she kept going. "Do you know what it's like to care about someone who won't let you in? To watch you retreat every time we get close? To see you punish yourself for wanting something good? I have been patient, Ethan. I have given you space and time and understanding, but I can't do this if you won't meet me halfway. I can't be the only one fighting for us." "You're not," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "You're not the only one fighting." "Then prove it. Stop running. Stop using Sarah's death as a shield against living. Tell me what you actually want, because I can't keep guessing anymore. I need to know if this is real for you or if I'm just wasting my time loving someone who's too scared to love me back." The word hung in the air between them. Love. She loved him. And God help him, he loved her too. "I'm scared," Ethan said, the admission ripping out of him. "I'm terrified, because loving someone again means risking losing them again, and I don't know if I could survive that a second time. When you said you might leave, all I could think about was Sarah. How one day she was there, and then she was sick, and then she was gone, and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't save her. And the thought of going through that again, of loving you and losing you—" "You can't live like that," Lena interrupted, stepping closer. "You can't refuse to love because you're afraid of loss. That's not living, Ethan. That's just surviving. And you deserve more. Maya deserves more. I deserve more." "I know. I know that. But knowing it and being brave enough to actually do it are different things." "Then be brave," Lena said, and there were tears streaming down her face now, mixing with the rain. "Be brave enough to let me in. Be brave enough to admit that you care about me. Be brave enough to try." Ethan looked at her. This woman who had walked into his cafe months ago and quietly, patiently, persistently worked her way into his heart. This woman who understood his grief without being crushed by it, who loved his daughter, who made him remember what joy felt like. This woman standing in front of him, soaked and crying and still fighting for them when it would be so much easier to walk away. And he realized that the scariest thing wasn't loving her and losing her someday. The scariest thing was pushing her away now and spending the rest of his life wondering what if. "I love you," Ethan said, the words tumbling out raw and honest and terrifying. "I'm in love with you, and that scares me more than anything. But I don't want to lose you. I don't want to push you away. I want to try, really try. No more running, no more retreating when things get hard. I want to figure this out with you." Lena stared at him, tears still falling. "You mean it?" "I mean it. I love you, Lena Moreno. I love the way you grade papers at table 3. I love how patient you are with Maya. I love that you wear paint-stained cardigans and order vanilla lattes and make terrible jokes that somehow always make me laugh. I love you, and I'm sorry it took me this long to say it. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I was too scared to. Lena crossed the distance between them and kissed him, hard and desperate and full of everything they'd both been holding back. Ethan pulled her close, rain and tears and relief mixing together as they held each other in the empty cafe. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Lena said, "I love you too, you idiot. Even when you're pushing me away and being impossible and making everything harder than it needs to be. I love you. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." They stood there, holding each other as the rain continued outside, and Ethan felt the last of his walls come down. This was it. This was him choosing to be brave, choosing to risk his heart, choosing to believe that love was worth the possibility of loss. "So what now?" Lena asked. "Now we figure it out. Together. One step at a time." "I can do that." "Me too." And for the first time in 3 years, Ethan believed it. They stood there in the silent cafe, wrapped in each other's arms, the rain drumming against the windows like applause. Ethan could feel Lena's heart beating against his chest, could smell the rain in her hair, could feel every wall he'd spent 3 years building, finally, completely crumbling to dust. "You're soaking wet," he said eventually, his voice rough. Very observant. Lena pulled back slightly, looking up at him with eyes that were red from crying but also bright with something that looked like hope. "And you're getting wet too now." "Worth it." She laughed, the sound shaky but genuine, and Ethan felt something in his chest expand. This was real. They'd said it out loud, love, and the world hadn't ended. Sarah's memory hadn't been erased. The cafe hadn't collapsed. He'd just spoken truth into existence and discovered that truth could coexist with grief, that moving forward didn't require abandoning the past. "Come on," Ethan said, taking Lena's hand. "Let's get you dried off before you catch pneumonia." He led her upstairs to his apartment, found her one of his hoodies and a pair of sweatpants that would be comically large on her, and turned around while she changed in the bathroom. When she emerged, looking small and vulnerable in his oversized clothes, Ethan felt his heart do something complicated. "Better?" he asked. "Much, though I look ridiculous." "You look perfect." Lena's cheeks flushed pink. "Careful, Parker. You're getting dangerously close to being romantic." "Is that allowed now, since we said the thing?" "The thing being that we're hopelessly in love with each other despite your best efforts to sabotage it?" "That thing, yeah." "I think it's allowed. Encouraged, even." Lena sat down on his couch, tucking her feet underneath her. "Though we should probably talk about what happens next, the actual logistics of us." Ethan settled beside her, maintaining a careful few inches of space that Lena immediately closed by leaning against his shoulder. "What do you want to happen next?" "Honestly, I want to take things slow. Slower than we probably should, given that we just had a dramatic declaration of love in the rain. But I think we need to build this right. No more panicking and pushing away. No more assuming the worst. Just honest communication and actually trying." "I can do that. I want to do that." Ethan wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "What about Maya?" "What about her?" "She already knows how I feel about you. She's been pushing us together since day one. But making it official, making you a real part of our lives, that's big. I need to make sure she's okay with it." Lena was quiet for a moment. "She's a smart kid. I think she's already decided how she feels, but yes, talking to her is important, including her in this decision." "And what about your family? The job offer in Portland? Was that about them?" "Partly. My parents weren't thrilled when I moved across the country. They thought I was running away, which I was, kind of. The job offer felt like a chance to repair those relationships." She paused. "But I realized something while I was deciding. I can't build a life around making other people happy. I need to build it around what makes me happy. And what makes me happy is here. My students, my friends. You. Even though I'm a mess? Especially because you're a mess. I like your mess. It's honest." Lena tilted her head to look up at him. "For the record, I'm a mess too. I have anxiety about literally everything. I overthink every conversation. I stress-eat cookie dough when I'm grading papers. I watch reality TV and cry about people I'll never meet. I'm not some perfect person who has everything figured out." "Good. Because I don't think I could handle perfect right now. You're getting imperfect and complicated. Hope that's okay. That's more than okay. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the rain, and Ethan marveled at how natural this felt. How easy it was to just exist beside Lena without needing to fill every moment with words or action. It was enough to just be here, together, figuring things out. Can I stay tonight? Lena asked quietly. Not for, just to sleep. I don't want to go home to my empty apartment and overthink everything that just happened. Of course. You can have the bed. I'll take the couch. Or we could both take the bed. Like adults who trust each other not to make things weird. Ethan's heart stuttered. Are you sure? I'm sure. Unless you're not comfortable. No, I am. I want you to stay. Later, lying in the darkness with Lena curled against his side, her breathing evening out into sleep, Ethan stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything that had happened. He'd told Lena he loved her. She'd said it back. They were doing this, really doing this, building something real and complicated and terrifying. And for the first time since Sarah's death, Ethan felt like he could breathe fully. Like there was room in his chest for both grief and joy, for both remembering and moving forward. Like maybe, just maybe, he was going to be okay. Morning came with weak winter sunlight and the smell of coffee. Ethan woke to find Lena's side of the bed empty, panic flaring briefly before he heard sounds from the kitchen. He found her there, still wearing his clothes, attempting to navigate his coffee maker with the concentration of someone defusing a bomb. This thing is more complicated than it needs to be, she announced without looking up. It's a professional-grade machine. There's a learning curve. I teach 9-year-olds. I can figure out your pretentious coffee maker. Ethan laughed, coming up behind her and gently moving her aside. Let me. You're going to break it. I am not. Okay, yes, I probably was. Coffee machines hate me. Lena hopped up to sit on the counter, watching him work. Is this what mornings with you are like? Judgmental coffee making? Pretty much. That and convincing Maya that cereal counts as a complete breakfast. Revolutionary parenting. I do what I can. They fell into easy banter, and Ethan was struck by how normal this felt. How right. Like Lena had always been part of his morning routine, part of his life, part of the space Sarah had left behind. The thought brought a flicker of guilt, but smaller this time. Manageable. What are you thinking about? Lena asked, her perceptiveness as sharp as ever. Sarah. And you. And how strange it is that both those thoughts can exist in my head at the same time. Not strange. Human. Lena accepted the coffee he handed her, taking a careful sip. She was your wife. She'll always be part of your story. I'm not trying to write over that chapter. I'm just hoping to be part of the next one. The next chapter, Ethan repeated. I like that. It doesn't erase what came before. It just continues. Exactly. They were interrupted by the sound of the apartment door opening and Maya's voice calling out, Dad, are you here? Uncle Tom brought me home early because... She appeared in the kitchen doorway and stopped dead, taking in the scene. Lena in Ethan's clothes. 2 coffee mugs. The obvious intimacy of the moment. Oh. Maya, hi, Ethan started. Did you guys make up? Maya asked, a grin spreading across her face. Please tell me you made up, because I've been so worried and Uncle Tom said I should give you space, but I was going to come over anyway and make you apologize properly. We made up, Lena said, laughing. Your dad said some very nice things after saying some very stupid things first. That sounds about right. Maya launched herself at Ethan, wrapping her arms around his waist. I'm glad. You were so sad. Worse, I didn't like it. Ethan hugged his daughter, emotion thick in his throat. I'm sorry I worried you. It's okay. You're not very good at feelings, but you're trying. Maya pulled back, then surprised them both by hugging Lena too. I'm glad you're staying. In the city, I mean. And also here. With us. If you want to. Lena's eyes were suspiciously bright. I want to, if that's okay with you. It's super okay, more than okay. I already told all my friends that my dad was dating my teacher, and they thought it was so cool. Maya's expression turned serious. But also, we need to talk about this. The 3 of us. Because this is big, right? This is like, you're going to be around a lot now? That's the plan, Ethan confirmed. If you're comfortable with it. I am, but I have questions. Okay, shoot. Maya climbed onto a stool, her expression comically grave for a 9-year-old. First question, are you boyfriend and girlfriend now? Ethan glanced at Lena, who nodded. Yes. Okay. Second question, does this mean Lena will be here for dinners and stuff? Sometimes, yeah, if that's okay. It's okay. Third question, if you guys get married someday, does that mean Lena becomes my stepmom? The question hung in the air, bigger than anything else. Ethan felt his breath catch, but before he could panic, Lena spoke. That's a long way off, Maya. Right now, we're just figuring out how to be together. But if someday, way in the future, your dad and I decided to get married, I would never try to replace your mom. Nobody could do that. I'd just be another person who loves you. Is that okay? Maya considered this carefully. Yeah, that's okay, because I can love more than one person, right? I love Dad, and I love Mom even though she's gone, and I love Uncle Tom, and I love my friends. Love doesn't run out. No, Lena said softly. It doesn't run out. Okay. Last question. Can we have pancakes for breakfast? Because this is a special occasion, and special occasions require pancakes. Ethan laughed, relieved and overwhelmed in equal measure. Pancakes sound perfect. They made breakfast together, the three of them moving around the kitchen in a dance that felt surprisingly natural. Maya chattered about her sleepover, Lena told stories about her students, and Ethan just listened, soaking in the warmth of it all. This was what moving forward looked like. Not forgetting Sarah, but making room for new people, new love, new possibilities. After breakfast, Maya disappeared to her room to work on a school project, leaving Ethan and Lena alone at the table. That went better than I expected, Ethan said. She's amazing. You've done such a good job with her. Sarah did most of the work. I'm just trying not to mess up what she started. Lena reached across the table, taking his hand. You need to give yourself more credit. You're a great father. Sarah would be proud of you, of both of you. The words settled over Ethan like a blessing. Thank you for understanding, for being patient with my mess, for not running when I gave you every reason to. Thank you for finally letting me in, for being brave enough to try. Lena squeezed his hand. So what now? Do we tell people? Make this official? I think people already know. Tom's going to be insufferable when he finds out we finally got our act together. Mrs. Chen is going to have a field day. The entire neighborhood is going to be gossiping within hours. Good, let them gossip. Lena smiled. I don't care who knows. I love you. I'm not hiding that. I love you too, and I'm done hiding. The rest of the day unfolded with lazy contentment. Lena went home to change and grab some things, then came back for dinner. They cooked together, Ethan making his grandmother's pasta recipe while Lena and Maya worked on garlic bread, and it felt like a glimpse of the future. Easy, warm, right. After Maya went to bed, Ethan and Lena sat on the couch, her feet in his lap, talking about everything and nothing. I should probably go home, Lena said eventually, though she made no move to get up. I have lesson plans to finish. Or you could stay. Ethan Parker, are you trying to corrupt me with your comfortable couch and excellent company? Maybe. Is it working? Completely. She shifted, curling into his side. But seriously, we should probably pace ourselves. I don't want to rush this and mess it up. You're right, slow and steady. Slow and steady, Lena agreed. But neither of them moved. They fell asleep like that, tangled together on the couch. And when Ethan woke up hours later to carry Lena to bed, she murmured sleepily, Love you. Love you too, he whispered back, and meant it with his whole heart. The next few weeks settled into a new normal. Lena came over for dinners twice a week. They had regular date nights, sometimes fancy restaurants, sometimes just walks through the city, sometimes staying in and watching movies while Maya provided running commentary. They texted constantly, called each other before bed, built routines and inside jokes, and the small intimacies that made a relationship real. And Ethan found himself happier than he'd been in years. Not a happiness that erased grief. Sarah's absence was still a weight he carried, but a happiness that coexisted with it. He could miss Sarah and love Lena. He could honor the past while building a future. He could be both a widower and a man in love. Tom, as predicted, was insufferable. "I knew it," he crowed one afternoon at the cafe. "I knew you two were perfect for each other. I should charge for my matchmaking services." "You didn't matchmake anything. You were just persistently annoying." "Same thing," Tom grinned. "Seriously, though, I'm happy for you. You deserve this." "Thanks, Tom. And Lena's great. She's good for you, makes you smile again." Tom's expression turned serious. "Sarah would approve, you know. She'd be glad you found someone." "I know," Ethan said, and realized he believed it. Sarah had loved him enough to want him happy, even without her. Honoring that love meant living fully, not just surviving. Valentine's Day approached with all the commercial fanfare that made Ethan groan. But when Lena mentioned almost shyly that she'd never really celebrated Valentine's Day properly, her ex had thought it was a corporate conspiracy, Ethan decided to make it special. He closed the cafe early, sent Maya to spend the night with Tom, and transformed the space into something out of a romance movie. Candles, fairy lights, a table set for two in the center of the empty cafe. He cooked Sarah's famous carbonara and didn't feel guilty about it, and waited for Lena to arrive. When she walked in, her eyes went wide. "Ethan, what did you do?" "I wanted to give you a proper Valentine's Day. Is it too much?" "It might be too much." Lena kissed him, cutting off his nervous rambling. "It's perfect. You're perfect." "I'm really not." "Perfect for me, then." They ate dinner by candlelight, talking and laughing and trading bites of food like teenagers. After dinner, Ethan pulled out a small wrapped box. "I got you something," he said, suddenly nervous. "It's not much, but inside was a simple silver bracelet with a small charm, a paintbrush crossed with a coffee cup." "For the artist who drinks terrible coffee," Ethan explained, "or used to before I corrupted you with the good stuff." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "It's beautiful. Help me put it on?" As he fastened the clasp around her wrist, Lena said, "I got you something too. But it's not a thing. It's more of a commitment? Promise? I don't know what to call it." "Okay. I want you to meet my parents. They're coming to visit next month, and I want them to meet you and Maya. I want them to understand why I stayed here instead of going back to Portland. I want them to know you're not just some rebound or distraction. You're real. This is real." Ethan's throat tightened. "You want me to meet your parents?" "I do. If you're ready, no pressure, but yes, I want to meet them. I want to do this right, Lena. All of it." "All of it," she echoed, and kissed him with enough passion to make Ethan forget his own name. Later, slow dancing in the empty cafe to music from Ethan's phone, Lena said, "I never thought I'd have this. After my ex, after everything fell apart, I thought maybe I just wasn't meant for this kind of love. The real, messy, complicated kind that actually means something." I thought the same thing. After Sarah died, I was so sure I'd used up my quota of great love, that I'd had my chance and lost it, and that was it. Ethan pulled her closer. "I'm glad we were both wrong." "Me too." Lena rested her head against his chest. "Thank you for letting me in. I know how hard that was. Thank you for not giving up on me, for fighting when I was too scared to fight for myself." They stayed like that, swaying in the candlelight, and Ethan felt something he hadn't felt since before Sarah got sick. Hope for the future. Not just surviving the next day or getting through the next week, but actual hope that life could be good again, that joy could be sustainable, that love could last. "I have something to tell you," Ethan said suddenly. Lena pulled back to look at him. "Okay?" "I started writing again, just a little bit, late at night when I can't sleep. Nothing serious, just thoughts and memories and trying to process everything. But I realized I haven't written anything in 3 years, and starting again feels like, I don't know, like reclaiming a part of myself I thought was gone." "Ethan, that's amazing. What made you start?" "You. This. Remembering that there are still things worth writing about, that my story isn't over just because one chapter ended tragically." He cupped her face in his hands. "You make me want to be the person I used to be, before the grief took over, the person who believed in possibilities. I don't want you to be who you used to be. I want you to be who you are now, grief and healing and all. Lena's eyes were bright. But I'm glad you're writing. The world needs your words. I love you, Ethan said, because he could now, because it was true, because saying it out loud was becoming less terrifying each time. I love you too. So much. They made it another hour before Lena reluctantly said she should go home, that staying over on Valentine's Day felt like rushing things, even though they'd already said I love you and met each other's important people and were clearly building towards something permanent. This is ridiculous, Ethan said at her car. We're two adults who are clearly committed to each other, and we're still pretending we need separate spaces. We're taking it slow. Being responsible. Being responsible is overrated, says the man who color codes his coffee inventory. That's different. That's organization, not responsibility. Lena laughed, kissing him one more time. Good night, Ethan Parker. Thank you for the best Valentine's Day of my life. Good night, Lena Moreno. Thank you for being worth the risk. After she left, Ethan cleaned up the cafe, blowing out candles and taking down lights, and felt lighter than air. This was real. This was happening. He was in love and being loved in return, and the world hadn't ended. Sarah's memory wasn't diminished. He was just happy. Genuinely, fully happy. When he went upstairs, he found a text from Lena. I lied. I do have a physical gift for you. Check your email. Curious, Ethan opened his laptop. There was an email from Lena with the subject line, "For the writer in you," and an attachment. He downloaded it to find a document titled "The Man Who Learned to Love Again." It was a story, just a few pages, about a widower who ran a coffee shop and thought his heart was permanently broken until a patient art teacher showed him otherwise. It was their story, fictionalized and sweetened, but unmistakably them. And at the end, Lena had written, "Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about perfect timing or easy romance. They're about two broken people choosing to be brave enough to try. This is your story, Ethan, our story, and I think it's worth telling." Ethan read it 3 times, tears streaming down his face, overcome by the gift of being seen so completely, so honestly. He called Lena, not caring that it was late. "Did you read it?" she asked, instead of saying hello. "I read it, Lena. It's beautiful. It's true. That's what makes it beautiful. I can't believe you wrote this for me. For us. Because I needed you to see what I see. That this isn't just healing or moving on or whatever clinical term people use. This is real love. The messy, complicated, absolutely worth it kind." "I see it," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "I see it, and I'm not running anymore. I'm all in, Lena. Completely. Promise?" "I promise. No more panic, no more pushing away. Just us, figuring it out together." "Together," Lena agreed. "I like the sound of that." After they hung up, Ethan sat at his desk and did something he hadn't done in years. He opened a blank document and started writing. Not about the past, but about the present. About a man learning to live again. About a daughter who was wiser than her years. About a woman who'd walked into his cafe and refused to let him hide in his grief. He wrote about Sarah too, about the love they'd shared and the loss he'd survived. But he also wrote about Lena, about hope and second chances, and the terrifying beauty of loving someone new. He wrote until his eyes burned and his fingers cramped, pouring out everything he'd been holding inside for 3 years. And when he finally stopped, as dawnlight crept through his windows, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt since Sarah's death. Whole. Not healed. He didn't think he'd ever be fully healed, but whole enough to function, to love, to build a future. His phone buzzed with a text from Maya, who was apparently already awake at Tom's house. "Uncle Tom made pancakes and they're terrible. When can I come home? Also, did you and Lena have a good Valentine's Day? She better have said yes to being your girlfriend officially, or I'm going to be so mad." Ethan smiled, typing back. "She said yes. Come home whenever you want, and tell Tom his pancakes are fine. You're just spoiled by mine." Maya's response was immediate. "Yay! I'm so happy. Also, your pancakes are better, but don't tell Uncle Tom I said that." Everything was far from perfect. Ethan still had hard days where grief hit him like a truck. He still kept Sarah's coffee mug on the shelf and her photo by his bed. He still sometimes felt guilty for being happy. But he was learning that life wasn't about choosing between grief and joy. It was about holding both, honoring the past while building a future, loving Sarah's memory while loving Lena's presence. It was about being brave enough to try. And for the first time in 3 years, Ethan was ready to be brave. The weeks leading up to Lena's parents' visit passed in a blur of nervous energy and careful planning. Ethan found himself overthinking everything: what to wear, what to cook, how to explain his complicated history without scaring off the people whose approval suddenly felt monumentally important. It was Maya who finally talked him down from his anxiety spiral one evening in early March. "Dad, you're being ridiculous," she said, watching him rearrange the living room furniture for the third time. "They're just people, regular people who want to make sure their daughter is happy." "I know that. I just want to make a good impression." "You will. Because you're a good person who loves their daughter and makes excellent coffee. That's literally all that matters." Maya flopped onto the newly positioned couch. "Also, this looks worse than before. Put it back." Ethan looked at the room and realized she was right. "When did you become the voice of reason in this relationship?" "I've always been the voice of reason. You just don't listen." She grinned. "Lena thinks you're great. Her parents will too. Stop panicking." But Ethan couldn't stop panicking. Not entirely. Not until the day finally arrived and Lena's parents walked into the cafe with warm smiles and open expressions that immediately put him at ease. Carmen Moreno was petite and energetic, with the same dark eyes as her daughter and a laugh that filled the room. Roberto Moreno was tall and quiet, the kind of man who observed everything and spoke only when he had something worth saying. "You must be Ethan," Carmen said, pulling him into a hug before he could offer a handshake. "Lena has told us so much about you, and this must be Maya. Oh, you're even more beautiful than your pictures." Maya, who'd been nervous about meeting Lena's parents, immediately warmed under Carmen's attention. "Thank you, Mrs. Moreno. Do you want coffee? Dad makes really good coffee." "I would love coffee. And please, call me Carmen." Roberto shook Ethan's hand with a firm grip and assessing eyes. "Roberto, nice to finally meet the man who convinced our daughter to stay on the East Coast." "I'd like to think Lena made that decision herself," Ethan said carefully. "She did. But you were a significant factor." Roberto's expression softened slightly. "She seems happy, happier than she's been in years." "She makes me happy too," Ethan said, and meant it with his whole heart. The afternoon unfolded with surprising ease. Carmen asked a million questions about the cafe, about Maya's school, about Ethan's coffee-making process, while Roberto listened and occasionally interjected with dry observations that made everyone laugh. Maya gave them a tour of the cafe, pointing out her favorite table and the display case where Ethan showcased her baking experiments. Lena watched it all with barely contained joy, her hand finding Ethan's whenever they stood close enough. Dinner was at Ethan's apartment, and he'd agonized over the menu for days before settling on something simple: roasted chicken, vegetables, a salad that Maya had helped prepare. Nothing too fancy, nothing that screamed trying too hard, just good food made with care. "This is delicious," Carmen said, and there was genuine appreciation in her voice. "Lena said you were a good cook, but this is restaurant quality." "My wife taught me most of what I know," Ethan said, and felt Lena's hand squeeze his under the table. "She believed cooking was an act of love. I try to honor that." "Your wife," Roberto said, not unkindly. "Lena mentioned you're a widower. That must have been difficult." "It was. It is." Ethan glanced at Maya, who nodded encouragingly. "Sarah died 3 years ago. Cancer. It was fast and brutal, and it broke something in me that I didn't think could be fixed. For a long time, I just existed, went through the motions, focused on Maya and the cafe and surviving each day. And then Lena walked in," Carmen said softly. "And then Lena walked in," Ethan confirmed. "And she was patient and kind, and she didn't try to fix me. She just let me be broken while also showing me I could still be whole. I know this isn't a traditional situation. I know I come with a lot of baggage, grief and a daughter and a life that was built around someone else. But I love your daughter, completely. And I'm trying every day to be the kind of man who deserves her." The silence that followed felt heavy with judgment, and Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. But then Carmen reached across the table and took his hand. "Thank you for being honest," she said, "and for loving our daughter. That's all we want. For her to be with someone who sees her, who values her, who won't take her for granted. Carmen's eyes were bright. We lost Lena for a while after her last relationship. She became someone smaller, quieter, less herself. When she moved here, we worried she was running away. But talking to her now, seeing her with you and Maya, she's herself again. Better than herself. That's because of you. That's because of her, Ethan corrected gently. She did the work. I just got lucky enough to be here when she was ready. Roberto cleared his throat. I have one question, and I need you to answer honestly. Okay? Are you going to marry our daughter? The question landed like a bomb. Lena choked on her water, Maya's eyes went wide, and Ethan felt every thought flee his brain. Dad? Lena gasped. You can't just... We've only been together for a few months. I'm not asking when, Roberto said calmly. I'm asking if. Because I don't want my daughter investing in something that doesn't have a future. She's done that before. She deserves someone who's sure. Ethan looked at Lena, saw the mixture of mortification and hope in her expression, and realized he knew the answer. He'd known it for weeks now, maybe longer, had just been too scared to acknowledge it. Yes, he said simply. I'm going to marry her. Someday, when we're both ready, when Maya's comfortable with it, when it feels right. Yes, I'm sure. The apartment went silent. Lena stared at him with tears in her eyes. Maya grinned like she'd won the lottery. Carmen pressed her hand to her heart. Roberto nodded once, satisfied. Good, Roberto said. That's what I wanted to hear. You just... Lena sputtered, looking between her father and Ethan. You just proposed? Kind of? In the weirdest way possible. I didn't propose, Ethan said quickly. Your dad asked a question and I answered honestly. That's not the same as a proposal. But you said you're going to marry me. Someday. Eventually. If you'll have me. That's basically a proposal. It's a statement of intention. Very different. Maya leaned toward Carmen and stage whispered, They're always like this. It's adorable and annoying. Carmen laughed, and the tension broke. The rest of dinner passed in warmth and laughter, stories about Lena's childhood and Ethan's early cafe disasters, and Maya's increasingly ambitious plans for her future bakery empire. By the time Carmen and Roberto left for their hotel, promising to return tomorrow for brunch, Ethan felt like he'd passed some crucial test. After Maya went to bed, Lena stayed behind, helping Ethan clean up the kitchen. They worked in comfortable silence until Lena finally said, So, you're going to marry me someday. That's the plan, if you're okay with it. I'm more than okay with it. I'm just surprised you said it out loud. In front of my parents and your daughter. Your dad put me on the spot. I wasn't going to lie. Ethan dried his hands, turning to face her. But I meant it, Lena. I know it's fast. I know we should probably wait longer, be more cautious, follow some traditional timeline. But I'm 41 years old. I've been married before. I know what love feels like, and this is it. You're it. Lena crossed the distance between them, wrapping her arms around his neck. You're it for me too, and I don't care about timelines or what's traditional. I just care about us. About this. She kissed him softly. But when you do actually propose, it better be more romantic than my dad interrogating you over roast chicken. Noted. I'll work on my proposal game. Good, because I have high standards. I'm aware. You drink vanilla lattes, very demanding. She laughed and kissed him again, and Ethan felt the last piece of his fear dissolve. This was real. This was forever. And he was ready for it. The next few months brought changes that felt both monumental and perfectly natural. Lena started spending more nights at the apartment, her toothbrush appearing in the bathroom, her coffee mug claiming space in the cabinet. Maya started calling her Lena instead of Mrs. Moreno, outside of school, a small shift that felt significant. The three of them developed routines: Friday movie nights, Sunday morning pancakes, evening walks through the neighborhood. And Ethan wrote. He wrote about Sarah and grief and learning to live again. He wrote about Lena and hope and the terrifying beauty of second chances. He wrote about Maya and parenthood and the wisdom of children. The words poured out of him like water from a long, dry well, and for the first time in years, he felt like himself again. Not the self he'd been before Sarah died, but a new self, built from the ruins of grief and the foundation of love. One evening in late May, Tom stopped by the cafe after closing, finding Ethan alone, organizing inventory. "You look happy," Tom observed, settling onto his usual stool. "I am happy. It's a good look on you. Better than the grief zombie thing you had going for a while." Tom accepted the beer Ethan handed him. "Sarah would be proud, you know, of how you handled all this. The grief, the healing, the letting Lena in, all of it." Ethan thought about that, about Sarah and what she would think of his life now. "I think she would be. She always wanted me to keep living. I just had to figure out what that meant. And now you know? Now I know. It means showing up, being present, choosing love even when it's scary, building something new while honoring what came before." Ethan pulled Sarah's favorite coffee mug from the shelf, the one he'd kept there all these years. "I'm going to give this to Maya, for when she's older, when she wants something of her mom's. I don't need to keep it here anymore to remember Sarah. She's part of me, part of Maya. She's not going anywhere." Tom raised his beer. "To Sarah, for teaching you how to love. And to Lena," Ethan added, raising his own bottle, "for reminding me I still could." They drank in comfortable silence, and Ethan felt the rightness of the moment. He was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. Moving forward didn't mean forgetting, it just meant living. Summer arrived with heat and humidity, and with it came the end of the school year and Lena's temporary freedom from grading papers. She spent more time at the cafe, helping during the busy morning rush, charming customers, and creating elaborate drinks that Ethan would never put on the menu, but that made people smile. Maya finished 4th grade with excellent grades and a portfolio of artwork that Lena insisted on framing and hanging in the cafe. On a Tuesday in mid-June, Ethan closed the cafe early and asked Tom to watch Maya for the evening. He'd been planning this for weeks, coordinating with Lena's schedule, arranging every detail with the kind of care he usually reserved for coffee making. "Where are we going?" Lena asked when he picked her up, noting his nervous energy. "It's a surprise." "I hate surprises." "You're going to like this one." He drove them to a botanical garden on the outskirts of the city, a place Lena had mentioned loving when she first moved here. The gardens were closing to the public, but Ethan had arranged special access, and they walked through paths lined with roses and lavender, surrounded by the evening bird song and the sweet smell of flowers. "Ethan, this is beautiful," Lena said, wonder in her voice. "How did you—" "I know people. Well, I know one person who works here and owed me a favor." He led her to a small gazebo overlooking a pond where he'd set up candles and fairy lights and a picnic dinner. "I wanted to do this right, the whole romantic gesture thing. You're doing great so far." They ate and talked as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. When the stars began to appear, Ethan took Lena's hand and pulled her to her feet. "So," he said, his heart hammering, "your dad asked me a few months ago if I was going to marry you, and I said yes because I was sure. I am sure. But I never actually asked you properly, and you said you had high standards for proposals, and I've been thinking about this for weeks, trying to figure out the right way to do it." Lena's eyes went wide. "Ethan, let me finish before I lose my nerve." He took a breath, steadying himself. "I loved Sarah with everything I had. She was my first love, my wife, the mother of my daughter. And when she died, I thought that was it. I thought I'd used up my capacity for that kind of love. But then you walked into my cafe with your paint-stained cardigans and your terrible taste in coffee, and you were so patient with me. You let me grieve and heal at my own pace. You loved Maya without trying to replace her mother. You showed me that hearts don't run out of space. They expand to hold more love, more joy, more life." Tears were streaming down Lena's face, but she was smiling. "Keep going. You make me want to be brave. You make me want to write again, to dream again, to believe that the future can be good. You make me laugh, and you challenge me, and you see me, all of me, grief and joy, and everything in between. And you love me anyway. And I love you. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. But it's the good kind of scared, The kind that means I'm alive, really alive, for the first time in years. Ethan knelt down, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple ring, silver with a small diamond, elegant without being ostentatious. Lena Moreno, will you marry me? Will you be my wife? Maya's stepmom, and the woman I get to wake up next to for the rest of my life? Lena was openly crying now, her hands covering her mouth. Yes, yes, you idiot, of course I'll marry you. Ethan stood, sliding the ring onto her finger, and Lena threw her arms around him, kissing him through tears and laughter. They held each other in the gazebo as the stars wheeled overhead, and Ethan felt something lock into place, a piece of his life clicking into its rightful position. I can't believe you proposed, Lena said, pulling back to look at the ring. I can't believe this is real. Believe it. You're stuck with me now. Best decision I ever made. She kissed him again. Though we should probably tell Maya before she hears it from someone else. You know how this neighborhood gossips? I already told her. Well, I asked her permission first, technically, made sure she was okay with this. And what did she say? She said it was about time, and that if I didn't propose soon, she was going to do it for me. Ethan laughed at the memory. She also has opinions about the wedding. Many opinions. Be prepared. I can handle Maya's opinions. I'm a teacher, remember? I'm trained in negotiating with small, opinionated humans. They stayed in the garden until the caretaker came to gently remind them it was time to leave. On the drive home, Lena couldn't stop looking at her ring, twisting it on her finger like she was making sure it was real. My parents are going to lose their minds, she said. My mom has been planning my wedding since I was 5. She has a binder. A binder? Full of magazine clippings and color swatches and venue ideas. It's terrifying and adorable. I can't wait to see it. When they arrived at the apartment, Maya was still up despite the late hour, sitting on the couch with Tom, both of them obviously waiting. Maya took one look at Lena's hand and screamed, She said yes, Dad! She said yes! I said yes, Lena confirmed, laughing as Maya launched herself at them both. Tom stood, grinning. Congratulations, both of you. This is... His voice cracked slightly. This is really great. Thanks, Tom. For everything. Ethan pulled his friend into a hug. For not letting me give up. For pushing when I needed pushing. For being here through all of it. Always, man. Always. After Tom left, the three of them sat on the couch together, Maya between Ethan and Lena, talking excitedly about wedding plans and whether she could be the maid of honor and if they could have a chocolate fountain at the reception. We should probably actually plan some of this before we get too carried away, Ethan said eventually. When do you want to get married? Soon, Lena said without hesitation. I don't want a long engagement. I've waited long enough for this, for you, for us. How soon is soon? Is October too soon? That gives us 4 months to plan. Small wedding, just family and close friends. Nothing too elaborate. October is perfect, Ethan said, and Maya whooped with excitement. The next 4 months passed in a whirlwind of wedding planning and normal life colliding in the best possible way. Carmen flew in twice to help with preparations, bringing her infamous binder and enough enthusiasm to power a small city. Maya took her role as maid of honor very seriously, practicing her speech and designing her own dress with Lena's help. Tom was best man, a role he accepted with pride and immediately began abusing by making terrible jokes about Ethan finally rejoining the land of the living. Through it all, Ethan kept writing. His story, their story, had grown into something bigger than he'd anticipated. It was about grief and healing, love and loss, the courage to begin again. His therapist suggested submitting it to literary journals, maybe even looking for a publisher. Ethan wasn't sure he was ready for that level of exposure, but he also knew the writing had saved him in some fundamental way. It had helped him process the impossible, make sense of the senseless, find meaning in the pain. One evening in late September, with the wedding just weeks away, Ethan sat at his desk, working on the final chapter. Lena was asleep in their bed, because she'd officially moved in 2 months ago, her studio apartment packed up and absorbed into the life they were building together. Maya was asleep down the hall, dreaming whatever 9-year-olds dreamed about. The apartment was quiet, peaceful, full of the gentle breathing of the people he loved most. Ethan typed the final words, sat back, and read them aloud to the empty room. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about perfect timing or fairy tale romance. They're about real people making brave choices in the face of fear. They're about learning that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting what came before. They're about discovering that hearts can break and heal, that grief and joy can coexist, that second chances are possible if we're brave enough to reach for them. This is my story, our story. A story about a man who lost everything and found himself again in the patient smile of an art teacher who refused to let him hide. A story about a daughter wise beyond her years. A story about love, the kind that endures loss, survives pain, and emerges stronger for having been tested. And most importantly, a story about hope. Because hope is what keeps us going when everything else fails. Hope is what lets us believe in tomorrow, even when today feels impossible. Hope is what brought Lena into my cafe on an ordinary Tuesday and changed everything. I love Sarah with my whole heart, and I will carry that love with me always. But I also love Lena with my whole heart because hearts don't run out of space. They expand. And my heart has room for both the woman I lost and the woman I found. Room for grief and joy. Room for memory and possibility. Room for all the messy, complicated, beautiful parts of being human and being alive. So this is where my story ends and our story truly begins. With a wedding. With a family. With a future built on the foundation of the past but reaching towards something new. With love. Always. Always with love. Ethan saved the document, closed his laptop, and sat in the quiet darkness, feeling the weight of completion. He'd written their story, captured this impossible journey from grief to hope, and in doing so, he'd finally made peace with all of it. Sarah's death, his grief, his fear, his love for Lena. All of it could coexist. All of it was real. The wedding day arrived with October sunshine and crisp autumn air. The ceremony was small, held in the botanical garden where Ethan had proposed with just 50 guests, family, close friends, Maya's favorite teacher besides Lena, Mrs. Chen, and the other cafe regulars who'd become like family over the years. Ethan stood at the altar with Tom beside him, watching Maya walk down the aisle in her carefully designed dress, carrying flowers and grinning like she'd orchestrated this entire event personally. And then Lena appeared, escorted by her father, wearing a simple ivory dress that took Ethan's breath away. As she walked toward him, Ethan thought about the journey that had brought them here. The grief and fear, the tentative first conversations, the moment she'd confronted him in the rain and forced him to be brave. Every step, every choice, every moment of courage had led to this. Lena reached the altar, and Roberto placed her hand in Ethan's with a nod that said everything words couldn't. Ethan squeezed her fingers and Lena squeezed back, both of them blinking away tears. The ceremony was short and sweet, their vows personal and honest. Ethan promised to love Lena through joy and sorrow, to be brave when fear threatened, to choose her every day. Lena promised to be patient with his grief, to love Maya like her own, to build a life that honored the past while embracing the future. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Ethan kissed Lena with everything he had. All his love, all his gratitude, all his hope for their future. The guests cheered, Maya whooped loudly, and somewhere, Ethan thought, Sarah was smiling. The reception was held in the cafe, transformed with flowers and lights and long tables full of food. Tom's speech was equal parts embarrassing and heartfelt, telling stories about Ethan's grief zombie phase and how Lena had brought him back to life. Maya's speech was shorter but more devastating, thanking Lena for loving her dad and promising to be the best stepdaughter ever. As the evening wound down, Ethan and Lena snuck away to the apartment upstairs for a moment of quiet. They stood in the living room where Sarah's photograph still hung, because taking it down would have been wrong, would have suggested Lena was a replacement rather than an addition. "Thank you," Ethan said softly. "For what?" "For being patient. For not running when I gave you every reason to. For loving me and Maya enough to fight for us." He pulled her close. "For showing me that life could still be good. Thank you for letting me in, for being brave enough to try." Lena rested her head against his chest. "I love you, Ethan Parker." "I love you too, Lena Parker." He tried out her new name, liking the sound of it. They stood there holding each other, and through the window they could see their guests below, celebrating and laughing and filling the cafe with joy. This was their life now, their family, their future, and it was more than Ethan had ever hoped for. 6 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Ethan stood in the cafe making coffee while Lena graded papers at table 3 and Maya worked on a new baking recipe. It was ordinary and perfect, exactly the kind of moment he'd thought he'd lost forever when Sarah died. His phone buzzed with an email, a literary agent responding to the manuscript he'd finally, nervously submitted. He opened it with trembling hands, scanned the first line, and felt his heart leap. "They want to publish it," he said aloud, stunned. "The book! They want to publish it!" Lena's head snapped up. "What? Really?" "Really. They say it's a powerful story about grief and healing and second chances. They think it could help people going through similar losses." Lena abandoned her papers, crossing to him and pulling him into a fierce hug. "I'm so proud of you. Sarah would be proud too." "I'm dedicating it to both of you," Ethan said. "To Sarah, who taught me how to love, and to you, who reminded me I still could." "That's perfect." Maya joined them, wrapping her arms around both her parents. "This is the best family ever. Can we celebrate with cookies?" "We can celebrate with cookies," Ethan agreed, laughing. As they worked together to make the cookies, Maya measuring ingredients, Lena reading from the recipe, Ethan preheating the oven, Ethan felt the completeness of the moment. This was everything he'd thought he'd lost: family, joy, purpose, love. The cafe door opened and Mrs. Chen walked in, saw the three of them covered in flour and laughing, and smiled. "This is what I like to see. Happiness. You earned this, Ethan." "Thanks, Mrs. Chen." After she left with her decaf latte, Lena looked at Ethan with tears in her eyes. "We really did it, didn't we? We built something beautiful out of something broken." "We really did." That night, after Maya was asleep and the cafe was closed, Ethan sat at his desk and wrote the acknowledgments for his book. He thanked Sarah for loving him enough to want him happy. He thanked Tom for refusing to let him disappear into grief. He thanked Maya for her wisdom and patience and unconditional love. And he thanked Lena for walking into his cafe on an ordinary Tuesday and changing everything. But mostly, he thanked himself for being brave enough to try, for choosing to live instead of just survive, for believing that second chances were possible. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about perfect people finding each other at the perfect time. Sometimes they're about broken people choosing to be brave, about hearts expanding to hold more than they thought possible, about moving forward while honoring the past. Sometimes they're about a man who couldn't see what was right there, until he finally opened his eyes and let himself look. And sometimes, just sometimes, those stories have happy endings. Not because the pain disappeared or the grief ended or everything became perfect, but because the people in them chose love over fear, hope over despair, life over mere existence. Ethan closed his laptop, turned off the lights, and climbed into bed beside his wife. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new moments to navigate. But tonight, he was simply grateful. Grateful for Sarah's love, which had shaped him. Grateful for Lena's patience, which had healed him. Grateful for Maya's wisdom, which had guided him. And grateful for his own courage, which had saved him. He'd lost everything and found himself again. He'd been broken and rebuilt. He'd grieved and healed. And most importantly, he'd learned that the human heart's capacity for love was infinite, expanding to hold loss and joy, memory and possibility, yesterday and tomorrow, all at once, all together, all beautifully, messily, wonderfully human. This was his story. This was their story. And it was finally complete.